Chapter 1075. 1075 Dragon Carp Battle with Wu Chengkong. Boom. A terrifying explosion sounded, and the force shot out in all directions. The underground cave emitted a terrifying vibration. The rock of this underground cave was extremely hard, probably because it had been inhabited by powerful fierce beasts all year round. If it was an ordinary cave, it would have exploded immediately. Even so, the entire underground cave was shaking violently.
Bang!
Bang! After the first move, Lu Ming's body trembled, and he took a few steps back. He's so strong. This monk's strength is actually so terrifying. Lu Ming was extremely shocked. At this moment, he had already unleashed his dragon power, but he was still forced back by his opponent. The power of that golden palm print was astonishing, as if it could suppress everything. It was a direct counter to the prison-suppressing heavenly art. Lu Ming was shocked. The unscrupulous monk was also surprised. He did not expect Lu Ming to be able to take his palm without being injured. Roar! Roar! The shaking here attracted the attention of the beasts on the other side. They roared loudly. Clearly, some beasts were rushing over here. I'm a little kid. Benefactor, you're very powerful. I'll give this purple flame crystal to you then.
Goodbye.
The monk chanted the name of Buddha and left with his sleeves fluttering. Western Desert is truly unfathomable. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. The Western Desert had always been the territory of the Buddhist sect since ancient times. It had always been mysterious and extremely powerful. Many people said that out of the 5 territories of the divine wilderness continent, the Western Desert was only second to the central continent. Roar! The roar was like thunder, and the underground cave rumbled. Lu Ming did not think much and dug out the purple flame crystal. With a move of his body, he left the place. Following that, Lu Ming walked around the underground cave for a while, but did not find the third piece of purple flame crystal. However, he encountered a few purple giant lizards that he killed. However, it was obvious that there was a nest of giant lizards in the underground cave, some of which were very powerful. Lu Ming did not stay for long. He walked around for a while, then left the cave and flew into the distance. Hoop. A strong wind blew and Lu Ming smiled. He was in a good mood after obtaining 2 purple flame crystals. Each of the 7 main ingredients required to refine the Nirvana elixir was extremely precious and rarely appeared in the outside world. Now that he had obtained one, it could be considered an opportunity. Naturally, Lu Ming was in a good mood. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion rang out. In front of them, Sword Chi soared into the sky, inscriptions glittered, and the space was torn apart. There was an intense battle going on. Lu Ming flew at top speed. He cast the water concept and condensed a cloud of mist. He hid in the mist and watched. There were a total of 4 people in the great battle. Lu Ming was quite familiar with a few of them. They were Goddess Tianxiang, Kong Xian from the Tianxia Academy, Wu Chengkong from the Tianwu Sword Sect, and a brawny man in his 40s. He was as strong as Wu Chengkong. The 4 of them were in a chaotic battle. However, it was obvious that Goddess Tianxiang and Kong Xian were working together. They fought fiercely with Wu Chengkong and the brawny man. At this moment, Lu Ming noticed that there was a small lake below. The water was clear, and there were 3 koi swimming around in the lake. These 3 carps were golden, and there was light emitting from their bodies. They gathered and scattered at times, and when they gathered, they looked like a real dragon. Dragon carp, it's a dragon carp. Lu Ming was shocked. The dragon carp was also a supreme treasure. It was said to be the descendant of a true dragon. It had the true blood of a true dragon in its body and was used to refine pills. It was a rare treasure medicine, and its value is even higher than the purple flame crystal. Coincidentally, the blood of the dragon carp was one of the 7 main ingredients to refine the Nirvana elixir. You guys want to fight with me? You're looking for death. The dragon carp is mine, Wu Chengkong shouted, full of killing intent. Wu Chengkong, don't be too overbearing. There are 3 dragon carps. How about we each get one? Tan Xiang spoke. 1 rule per party. Do you have the qualifications? All 3 of them are mine. Wu Qinkong sneered. His sword Qi whistled and cut the space. It was terrifying. The other brawny man didn't say anything. His entire body was emitting white light. He waved his palm, and a huge hand appeared, tearing the sky and the earth. This is the sky-splitting Great Palm imprint. This person should be an expert from the Overlord Force, the Ji family. Lu Ming's heart stirred. Among the 3 parties, Wu Qinkong had amazing combat strength, and the strong man from the Ji family had a high cultivation and was not weak either. However, when Goddess Tan Xiang and Kong Xian joined forces, their combat strength was also very terrifying and not weaker than others. It was difficult to determine the winner in a battle between 3 parties. Lu Ming smiled. He suddenly used the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps and rushed toward the surface of the lake. In an instant, he appeared above the lake. He stretched out his hand, and a huge hand made of vital essence appeared, grabbing at the 3 dragon carps. Who is it? You're looking for death. The people in the air were shocked, and Wu Qinkong roared. Just as the 3 dragon carps were about to land in Lu Ming's hands, their bodies glowed and transformed into a ray of light. In a flash, they escaped from Lu Ming's giant primordial Qi hand. Lu Ming was shocked. Just as he was about to capture it with all his might, a terrifying sword Qi appeared in the space and slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming had no choice but to turn around and throw a punch. Bang! The sword Qi was destroyed.
Buzz.
Whoosh! In a flash, Wu Qinkong, the brawny man from the Ji family, Goddess Tan Xiang, and Kong Xian appeared around Lu Ming. However, they did not attack immediately. Instead, they locked their auras on Lu Ming. Kid, it's you? Wu Qinkong was shocked when he saw Lu Ming clearly. Fairy Tan Xiang and Kong Xian were also surprised. They recognized Lu Ming. Brat, to be able to block my sword, you must have some ability. You deliberately hid your strength before. Wu Qinkong looked at Lu Ming coldly and continued, however, since you dared to capture a dragon carp right under my nose, you must have reached the end of your life. The Martial Saint's secret realm is a place for those who see it. I saw a treasure, so of course I can help. Lu Ming pursed his lips slightly. If you make a move, you have to pay the price with your life. Wu Qinkong's killing intent exploded. He already had the intention to kill Lu Ming when Lu Ming refused to give him the quota for the marrow cleansing pool. Now, his killing intent was even more intense. Whoosh! Wu Qinkong swung his sword, and a terrifying sword Qi slashed at Lu Ming. It was even more powerful than before. Lu Ming was fearless. He activated the prison destructive heavenly art, exploded with dragon power, and threw a punch. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled, and the force surged. Water pillars rose from the lake below. The 3 dragon carps flickered and dodged the force.
Bang!
The sword Qi dispersed, and Lu Ming broke it with a punch. He stepped forward and said in a cold voice, "Just you? You're still lacking." Then he threw another punch. Lu Ming's fist seemed to contain the force of hundreds of millions of June. It was terrifying and shocking, causing the entire space to tremble. So strong. Wu Qinkong was extremely shocked. Genuine vitality surged in his body. The sound of swords rang out continuously as he slashed out shocking sword Qi. However, it was useless. Lu Ming was like an invincible god of war. He punched out with his fist force, continuously destroying the sword Qi and quickly approaching Wu Qinkong. On the side, Fairy Tan Xiang, Kong Xian, and the others were also extremely shocked. They had never expected that this young man, who was thought to have passed the Tianshu cave by luck, would have such a powerful combat strength. It was too terrifying. Why does this person's fighting style look so familiar? Fairy Tan Xiang said. I have the same feeling. Kong Xian said. Buzz. Suddenly, the strong man from the Ji family moved and pounced at the dragon carp below. Chapter 1076. 1076, Chapter 1076, Great Battle against Xuefeng. Don't even think about it.
Die.
Fairy Tan Xiang shouted. With a wave of her hand, a few pills flew out. The pills glowed and turned into weapons that attacked the Ji family's brawny man. At the same time, Kong Xian also attacked the burly man from the Ji family. The three of them started a great battle.
Boom.
Boom. Lu Ming was brave and invincible. He stepped on the void, and his fist's strength was shocking. The air kept exploding.
Wu Chenkong was forced to step back.
He was at a complete disadvantage. In the end, he let out a long howl and used the fusion of blood and meridians to form a combat sword. The sword chi whistled as he fought Lu Ming. To be honest, Wu Chenkong was very powerful, much stronger than Blood Luozi. He was indeed one of the most powerful masters under the five magnates. He had the right to be proud. However, his cultivation was still at the first level of the spiritual god realm. Lu Ming had never been afraid of anyone at the same level.
Clang. Clang.
After a few consecutive punches, the combat sword was sent flying, and it kept vibrating in the air. Damn it, who are you? Impossible. Wu Chenkong shouted in disbelief. He could not believe that a man who had appeared out of nowhere could have such terrifying combat power. Not far away, Kong Xian and the others were also shocked. Wu Chenkong was completely suppressed. It was too shocking. Who could do it except for the five magnates?
Boom. Boom. Boom.
Right at this moment, a terrifying explosion sounded from afar, and a blood-red light flew over at extreme speed. Buzz. A burly figure appeared in the air. His eyes were like lightning, and the moment he saw Lu Ming, he burst out with a shocking killing intent. Lu Shaoqing, die. The figure let out a furious roar and threw a punch. A blood-red fist radiance pierced through the void and headed towards Lu Ming. Blood seal. Lu Ming frowned. The figure was the previous top genius of Cold Blood Hall, Xuefeng. He did not expect to see him here. Lu Ming threw a backhanded punch, and it collided with Xuefeng's fist radiance. His body trembled, and he retreated continuously. Xuefeng was extremely powerful. He had a 7th-level divine-level bloodline and a cultivation base of the 4th level of the spiritual god realm. His combat strength was truly terrifying. Xuefeng stepped forward, his aura violent. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he glared at Lu Ming. At this moment, Fairy Tan Xiang and Kong Xian were dumbfounded. Lu Shaoqing. Xuefeng had just called Lu Ming Lu Shaoqing. This dark-skinned young man was actually Lu Shaoqing. After exchanging a blow with the Ji family's brawny man, the two of them retreated far away and did not continue to attack. Xuefeng's arrival had made the situation even more complicated. "Brother Lu, it's you?" Fairy Tan Xiang said. "Fairy, how have you been?" Lu Ming smiled. He remained calm in the face of Xuefeng. "It's really you." Kong Xian was also shocked. At this time, Wu Chenkong retreated far away and watched. This brat has offended Xuefeng. He's really looking for death. Wu Chenkong sneered. "Kill." Xuefeng roared as he stepped forward and threw a punch. The space was shattered by the blood-red fist radiance. It was extremely terrifying. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" The third bloodline emerged, and a trace of energy surged into Lu Ming's body. In an instant, Lu Ming's body was filled with a terrifying killing intent, and his hair turned blood-red. Then, the third bloodline turned into a combat sword. Lu Ming held it in his hand and slashed. A blood-red sword light flashed and split Xuefeng's fist in half. Is that his bloodline? That's strange. Why is there no chakra? On the side, Fairy Tan Xiang and the others were shocked. First, he was shocked that Lu Ming had finally unleashed the power of his blood meridian. His combat strength was indeed stronger, and he had not used his full strength earlier. Secondly, they were shocked. Lu Ming's blood meridian did not have a chakra. This was unheard of. Damn it, this guy shouldn't have a life talisman. I have to find a way to kill him. I'll wait for the opportunity to attack when he fights against Xuefeng. Wu Qinkong kept thinking. Xuefeng was shocked to see Lu Ming break his fist radiance with one sword move. The vital essence in his body circulated crazily, and his aura became more violent. Blood Leopard Divine Fist. Xuefeng's fists were like blood jade as he continuously punched out with a blood-red light. In the process of flying out, he transformed into a blood leopard and pounced at Lu Ming. This was a god-level martial technique that was incomparably powerful. 5 Slaughter Styles. Lu Ming activated the 5 Styles Massacre. His blood-red sword buzzed and a sword ray slashed out, scattering the blood leopards one by one. Slaughter Concept. Xuefeng was shocked. At the same time, he was even more determined to get rid of Lu Ming. Lu Ming's talent was too shocking. He was only at the first level of the spiritual god realm and could fight with him. The blood vessels appeared above his head. In the next moment, he transformed into a blood leopard and pounced at Lu Ming with a roar. Lu Ming was fearless. He held his sword and fought Xuefeng. Lu Ming's combat strength was unparalleled, and he was invincible among those of the same level. However, Xuefeng's cultivation was 3 levels higher than Lu Ming's. He was much more powerful. Moreover, he had also comprehended a divine-level martial arts technique and was extremely powerful when he used the blood fusion. Lu Ming exchanged dozens of moves with it and slowly fell into a disadvantage. The difference in cultivation is too big. If I use the bloodline of the 9 dragons or the bloodline of the prison-suppressing steel, and with the power of the 3rd bloodline, I might be able to fight this man. Lu Ming's mind was racing. However, this result had already shocked everyone else present to the point of no return. I didn't expect Brother Lu's combat power to be so strong. It's amazing. Kong Xian's mouth was agape and tongue-tied. After a while, she managed to squeeze out such a sentence. He was also at the first level of the spiritual god realm. However, he realized that if he were to fight with Lu Ming now, he would be killed easily. On the other side, Wu Qinkong's sword was also shaking in fear. If Lu Ming had used such a power just now, he would not have been able to resist at all. He was too strong. That's right. Even the 5 magnates who are at the same level as him might not be as strong as him. Fairy Tan Xiang sighed. Seal. In the middle of the battle, Lu Ming cast the 9 seals of the Divine Gate, forming a door of light. The light shone brightly and suppressed Xuefeng. For a moment, Xuefeng was actually frozen in place. Kill. Lu Ming stepped forward and slashed at the blood leopard's head. Roar. The blood leopard roared angrily, and a blood-red light exploded. With a bang, the light door was shattered at the critical moment. It continued to retreat, but it was still a step too slow. A piece of its scalp was cut off. Then, Lu Ming lifted his leg and kicked the blood leopard's stomach, sending it flying. What a pity! Lu Ming secretly felt that it was a pity. His cultivation was still not strong enough. The sealed door he had formed had been broken by Xuefeng's violent essential core. If Lu Ming's cultivation was stronger, or he had cultivated 2 sealed doors, it would not be so easy to break Xuefeng's seal. The sealing door was not omnipotent. If one's cultivation level was too high, Lu Ming would naturally not be able to seal it. Even so, Xuefeng's body was already cold. He looked at Lu Ming with fear in his eyes. He was almost killed by Lu Ming just now. What kind of secret technique is this? It's so terrifying. He was so shocked that he did not dare to step forward and fight Lu Ming. Kill. This time, it was Lu Ming's turn to take the initiative to kill. He stepped forward and charged at Xueban. Buzz. Another sealing door appeared. Xuefeng was frightened and quickly retreated, not daring to let the sealing door touch him. Chapter 1077. 1077, an existence that surpasses the Emperor. The door of seals glowed and flew towards Xue Feng like a ray of light. The light from the door of seals also had a sealing effect, and Xue Feng had no way of escaping. His body was enveloped by the light of the gate of sealing, and he could not help but freeze.
Buzz.
Lu Ming's body was like a flickering light and a fleeting shadow as he rushed toward Xue Feng. The blood leopard that Blood Seal had transformed into roared in anger. Blood light gushed out like a volcanic eruption and attacked the sealing door. This time, Lu Ming was even faster. The blood sword pierced through the air and pierced through the blood leopard's body in an instant. Roar! The blood leopard let out a deafening roar and destroyed the gate of seal. It clawed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's expression changed. In a hurry, he struck out with his palm, clashing with the blood leopard's claw. With a loud boom, Lu Ming's body was sent flying thousands of meters away. His qi and blood churned, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood-sealed true essence was too strong. The moment Lu Ming stabbed him, it broke through the sealing door and launched a counterattack. However, the blood leopard that Xiefeng had transformed into was stabbed by Lu Ming's sword. It was definitely not in a good state. At this moment, he shouted angrily and did not dare to continue fighting. Instead, he turned around and ran. Lu Ming did not pursue him. With his current cultivation level and the 9 seals of the Divine Gate, he could indeed injure Xue Feng by catching him off guard. However, it was almost impossible to kill him. If Xue Feng risked his life, Lu Ming would not have it easy. In the blink of an eye, Xue Feng had disappeared. As for Wu Qinkong, he had already sneaked away before Xue Feng escaped. As for the dragon carp, he did not dare to take it. If he continued to stay, he would definitely be killed by Lu Ming. On the other side, the middle-aged man of the Ji family's expression changed, but in the end, he sighed and turned to leave. His combat ability was only on par with Wu Qinkong. He would be courting death if he stayed. In an instant, only Lu Ming, Fairy Tanxiang, and Kong Xian were left in the sky above the lake. Brother Lu, why did you change your appearance? Even your aura has changed. It's making us suffer, Fairy Tanxiang said with a smile. There are some people I just don't want to see. Fairy, please forgive me. Lu Ming smiled. Lu Ming then looked at the 3 dragon carps in the lake and said, Do the 2 of you need dragon carps too? This time, it's all thanks to Brother Lu. Otherwise, when Xue Feng arrived, Brother Kong and I would not have gotten anything. These 3 dragon carps naturally belong to Brother Lu. Fairy Tanxiang said. You're too kind, Fairy. I only need 2. You can take the other one. Lu Ming smiled and landed on the surface of the lake. He cast the 9 seals of the Gate of God, and a sealing door appeared. The 3 dragon carps were instantly immobilized. Then, his vital essence condensed into a huge hand and scooped the 3 dragon carps up. With a wave of his hand, 2 of the dragon carps disappeared and were kept by Lu Ming into a small lake in the mountain and river diagram. To refine the Nirvana elixir, only the true blood of the dragon carp was needed. They did not have to kill the dragon carp, so 2 dragon carps were enough. More would not be of much use. There was no harm in giving the other one to Fairy Tanxiang. Many thanks, Brother Lu. Fairy Tanxiang revealed a look of joy. She was an alchemist, and this dragon carp was indeed of great use to her. After putting it away, Fairy Tanxiang was about to say something when her expression suddenly froze. She revealed a look of surprise and widened her eyes as she looked ahead. Beside him, Kong Xian was the same. She seemed to have seen something extremely shocking. Lu Ming was a little surprised. He turned around, and the next moment his eyes widened. In front of them, at an unknown distance away, there was a grand palace that appeared from the void. Clouds and mist lingered around it, making it look like a celestial palace. It was extremely huge, but it was filled with the vicissitudes of life, as if it had transcended countless years. It seemed both real and illusionary. From a distance, it didn't look real, like an illusion. What palace is this? It clearly wasn't there just now. Lu Ming was shocked. There was nothing there just now. Why did an ancient palace suddenly appear? The Holy Mansion. It's the Holy Mansion. Kong Xian muttered to himself, his eyes filled with excitement. Holy Mansion? Fairy Tanxiang and Lu Ming were both very surprised. This secret realm was called the Saint Mansion Secret Realm, but Lu Ming had never known what it meant. He did not expect that there was really a Saint Mansion. Yes, according to the ancient records of our Tianxia Academy, there is a Saint Mansion in this secret realm. There is a supreme existence in it, and it is said that he has surpassed the Emperor. Kong Xian said word by word. Her eyes were filled with excitement, as if she was a saint. An existence that surpasses the Emperor level. Lu Ming and Tanxiang gasped in shock. In the divine wilderness continent, emperors were the strongest. In the eyes of all cultivators, an emperor was already a supreme existence. Their combat power was all over the world. With one palm, they could split the sky and crack the earth. They could penetrate the earth and pierce through the sky. It was terrifying beyond compare. The ultimate goal of all cultivators was to become an emperor and dominate the world. But now, there was actually a figure who was above emperor here? How could it not be shocking? Is this true or false? Lu Ming asked. Kong Xian shook her head and said, I don't know, but that's what the ancient books said. And the ancient books said that the Saint Mansion rarely appeared. Even when the emperors could enter this place freely, no one had ever seen it. It had always been a legend. Now it has really appeared. It's incredible. Kong Xian sighed repeatedly and was very excited. Then, she revealed many secrets. It was said that there was an existence beyond the Emperor level living in this Saint Mansion. If someone obtained the token of the Saint Mansion, they could enter the Saint Mansion with it and obtain great opportunities. They could even have the chance to obtain the inheritance of that existence. The token of the Saint Mansion was in the secret realm. It's said that the Saint Mansion's secret realm has existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Even those who have surpassed the Emperor realm can't live for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Fairy Tanxiang asked with some doubts. The higher one's cultivation was, the longer one's lifespan would be. It was already very heaven-defying for an emperor to live for 10,000 to 20,000 years. It was equivalent to 100 lives for mortals. They could sit and watch the world change, just like a living historical record. As for existences that surpassed emperors, no matter how powerful they were, they couldn't possibly live for hundreds of thousands of years. That was too shocking and unbelievable. Unless it was a god in the legends. It was said that gods could exist together with heaven and earth and would never be destroyed, but that was only a legend. I'm not too sure about this. Kong Xian shook her head. Even so, their eyes were filled with flames. An existence that had surpassed the Emperor realm. This was too shocking. Once one reached that realm, they would definitely be able to see through the heavens and earth. It was unimaginable. If it was true, they would be able to obtain something that would benefit them endlessly.
Roar.
Roar. Right at this moment, a series of long howls resounded through the earth. It was extremely shocking.
Ow.
The three of them saw a huge Selavir wolf appear on a mountain in the distance. It howled at the sky, and its aura was shocking like a tsunami. With one step, the mountain collapsed. The Selavir wolf broke through the sky and flew in the direction of the Saint Mansion.
Boom, boom, boom.
In the sky, a mountain was moving. At a closer look, it was a giant snake. It slithered across the sky and headed for the Saint Mansion. Bang! The earth rumbled and trembled. A few people saw a giant ape as tall as a mountain not far away. It stomped on the ground, cracking the earth and shaking the mountains. In front of the giant ape, a martial artist could not dodge in time and was slapped to death by the giant ape. Chapter 1078. 1078 The Token of the Saint Mansion. The land seemed to be boiling. Powerful, ferocious beasts flew in the direction of the Saint Mansion. Along the way, they would kill any human warriors they saw. There were even powerful beasts killing each other.
Gah!
With a sharp cry, the sky darkened, and a terrifying pressure suddenly pressed down. Not good, let's go. Lu Ming's expression changed, and he rushed to the side. Fairy Tanxiang and Kong Xian's expressions changed drastically as well. They followed Lu Ming and charged to the side. A strong wind blew, and a giant eagle flew over the three people's heads. Its eyes were as sharp as swords, and it swept a glance at the three people. With a flap of its wings, a terrifying tornado formed, rolling towards the three people. Wherever the tornado passed, not to mention the trees, even the huge mountains were pulled up and rolled in. The scene was terrifying. The three of them ran forward at top speed to avoid the tornado. After the giant eagle conjured a tornado, it ignored Lu Ming and the rest and quickly left. The three of them didn't dare to take it head-on and used their movement techniques to avoid it. They flew for a few thousand miles before the tornado weakened and disappeared into the air.
Who?
The three of them let out a long breath. That giant eagle was definitely a ferocious beast above the 7th level of the spiritual god realm. It was too powerful, and they were far from it. It seems like the birth of the Saint Mansion has alarmed all the powerful beasts in the secret realm. Kong Xian said. What are your plans next? Lu Ming asked. Let's meet up with the other brothers and see if we can take a gamble. With the appearance of the Saint Mansion, if we can obtain even a little bit of luck, it will be extremely beneficial. Kong Xian's eyes were burning with passion. Fairy Tanxiang also nodded. A group of people from the Valley of the Medicine Masters had also entered, and she was also looking for people from the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Fairy, how about our two families join forces? The Valley of the Medicine Masters is good at the Tao of Inscription, and the Tianxia Academy also has its own Tao of Inscription and martial arts. Only by cooperating with each other can they bring out the best in each other. Kong Xian said. All right, it's decided then. Brother Lu, are you coming with us? Fairy Tanxiang looked at Lu Ming. No, I still have other matters to attend to. I'll take my leave now. Lu Ming shook his head and bade farewell to the two of them, leaving. The two of them felt that it was a pity. If Lu Ming had joined them, they would undoubtedly be more confident. Then the two of them left the place. The emergence of the Saint Mansion had stirred up everyone in the secret realm. Everyone in the world's academies knew some secrets. The rumors about those above the emperor level had also spread. All the experts who entered the secret realm were extremely excited. The experts of all major forces gathered and headed in the direction of the Saint Mansion. As Lu Ming flew, he soon saw a few corpses of ferocious beasts that had been killed by those powerful beasts. Lu Ming landed, and his devouring power burst forth, devouring the blood essence and demonic energy of the beasts. He had left Fairy Tanxiang and Kong Xian with this thought. Just now, the powerful beasts in the secret realm went on a rampage and killed many martial artists and weaker beasts. Lu Ming did not want to waste them. He devoured them to break through to the next realm. Along the way, Lu Ming devoured every human warrior and beast he saw killed. Among them, there were many existences at the spiritual god level. The amount of energy that Lu Ming devoured grew larger and larger. After a full day, Lu Ming had devoured the energy of more than 100 human warriors and beasts. Then, he found a hidden place and entered the mountain and river diagram to begin refining. The energy of the blood essence was all used to improve the bloodline of the 9 dragons. The rest of the energy was converted into true essence. Lu Ming started to break through to the 2nd level of the spiritual god realm. His current intent realm of heaven and earth was completely ahead of his cultivation. As long as he had energy, he could break through to the next realm.
Boom.
Boom. The boundless true essence gathered into the spiritual god, making it more solid. The spirit god sat cross-legged in his dantian. His entire body was shining, and he looked solemn. After half a day, there was a loud boom and Lu Ming's aura grew. Second level of the spiritual god realm. Lu Ming had finally broken through to the second level of the spiritual god realm. His strength had greatly improved. If he were to encounter Xue Feng now, Lu Ming was confident that he could kill him without the 9 seals of the Divine Gate. Lu Ming stood up and stepped out, appearing outside the mountain and river diagram. Now, we can fight for the Saint Mansion. Lu Ming revealed a confident look. If it had been before he had broken through to the second level of the spiritual god realm, Lu Ming might not have been able to obtain any benefits even if he had gone. Many of the previous generation's geniuses from the Overlord forces had entered. It was likely that every Overlord force had an expert like Xue Feng. There might even be someone stronger. Moreover, these forces had a large number of manpower. If Lu Ming was at the first level of the spiritual god realm, he might not be a match for him, even if he went. Moreover, there was still Yang Patian. The battle power of the top 5 young warriors was absolutely shocking and couldn't be underestimated. But now, Lu Ming was confident that even if he could not suppress the crowd, he would not have a problem getting a share of the loot. Using the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps, Lu Ming turned into a stream of light and sped away. Soon, Lu Ming had flown hundreds of thousands of miles. So far, where is the Saint Mansion? Lu Ming was speechless. He had flown for hundreds of thousands of miles, but he felt that the distance to the Saint Mansion was not close at all. It was still so far away that he could only see it but not reach it. Lu Ming continued to fly for millions of miles. Unfortunately, he still did not feel that he was close to the Holy Mansion. The Saint Mansion was suspended in the air, like a celestial palace.
Boom.
All of a sudden, the area in front of them was in an uproar. There were experts fighting, and it was extremely intense. The distant sky was covered by an endless light. All kinds of colors were flashing, and terrifying attacks were constantly colliding. Lu Ming was slightly shocked. He concealed his aura and flew over. Fairy Brother Kong. Below, a few figures looked up. Fairy Tan Xiang and Kong Xian were among them. Lu Ming flew over to greet them. Brother Lu. The two of them smiled when they saw Lu Ming. What's going on? Lu Ming asked. They're fighting for the Saint Mansion token. Fairy Tan Xiang said.
What?
The token of the Holy Mansion has appeared? Lu Ming was shocked. He didn't expect that the battle in the sky was over the token of the Saint Mansion. High up in the sky, the light was so bright that no one could see the faces of the people inside. They could only see 7 or 8 figures fighting fiercely. They were all powerful and terrifying existences. Even geniuses like Goddess Tan Xiang and Kong Xian could only watch from below. There were quite a number of people watching from below. Lu Ming saw Yin Bupo from the Sky Eagle Castle and a few other experts from the Sky Eagle Castle. In addition, on the Demon Mountain, the Ji family's people were also there. Everyone stared at the sky, watching the progress of the battle. Bang! Suddenly, a huge figure was shot down and fell heavily to the ground. It was a lightning eagle, its body covered in lightning, but it was no longer breathing. It was already dead. Senior brother. Yin Bupo and the others roared in shock and anger. It was obvious that this lightning eagle was an expert from the previous generation of the Sky Eagle Castle. Buzz. At this moment, another figure rushed down. It was a man in white who looked to be in his 30s. He was not dead, but he was injured. His white robe was stained with blood. Chapter 1079. 1079. The battle between the geniuses of the big shots. Senior brother Luo. Kong Xian's expression changed, and she stepped forward. Obviously, this person was an expert from the Tianxia Academy. Sigh, I'm not their match. I don't need the Holy Mansion token. Senior brother Luo sighed. Kong Xian and Fairy Tan Xiang were secretly shocked. They knew that senior brother Luo was the #1 genius of the previous generation of Tianxia Academy. He had awakened a 7th-level divine level bloodline and reached the 4th level of the spiritual god realm. He was not weaker than Xuefeng, but he was still no match for him. Those people who fought in the sky were really powerful. The number of people had decreased, but the battle had become even more intense. The terrifying tremors spread out for thousands of miles, and the void was as fragile as paper.
Bang.
Bang. Following that, more and more people were sent flying out of the battlefield. 4 people retreated from the battlefield one after another. They were severely injured and stood in the air, looking at the battlefield with fear in their eyes. Lu Ming could see that there were only 2 figures left in the sky, fighting fiercely.
Clang.
Clang. The sound of collisions rang out continuously, as if 2 gods were fighting. Selah. Space split open and the light receded. 2 figures appeared before everyone's eyes. Both of them were tall and burly, and their auras were wild. One of them was holding a heavenly halberd. His black hair was loose, and his aura was extremely shocking. He was just standing there, but the space around him was like water ripples, constantly twisting and forming circles of ripples. Yang Patian. This man was Yang Patian, one of the 5 young tyrants. The other man was standing in front of Yang Patian. His body was even more burly than Yang Potion's. He had 2 muscular arms and was holding a huge wolf-tooth club. This person looked very young, definitely not more than 30 years old. He was of the same generation as Lu Ming and the others. A Heaven's Pride expert of the younger generation was actually able to fight against Yang Patian. Who is this man? This person is from Northern Plains. He is known as the #1 genius of Northern Plains. I heard that he had a conflict with Yang Patian outside. Kong Xian explained in a low voice. Lu Ming was enlightened, so it was a paragon of Northern Plains. He had heard before that a paragon of Northern Plains had fought with Yang Patian, and neither of them won. A purple-gold token floated between the 2 of them, emitting a hazy glow. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. This must be the Holy Mansion token. Tuoba, sure. Let's decide the winner today. Yang Patian held the heavenly halberd in his hand. With a slight movement, he cut open a crack in the space. His aura was wild, his hair was flying, and his eyes were like lightning. Just what I wanted. Tuoba grinned and swung his mace, creating a loud rumbling sound. The Saint Mansion token was sent flying into the air by the powerful Qi. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, the 2 of them moved. They charged at each other and began a great battle. Yang Patian had also comprehended the space mentality, and his use of it was even more terrifying than the Emperor God's. At the same time, with the help of other mentalities, his heavenly halberd seemed to be able to cut through the void. The power of space surrounded it, and its power was terrifying. Tuoba Shi's muscles bulged like an invincible warrior as he brandished his mace, crushing everything in his path. He collided with the heavenly halberd, creating a terrifying boom. The 2 of them fought intensely and attacked continuously. In the blink of an eye, dozens of moves had passed. The others looked around with amazement in their eyes. Is this the strength of the 5 magnates? It is indeed powerful. Lu Ming sighed. At the same time, there was a strong desire to fight in his eyes. Sigh, they're too strong. They haven't even used their bloodline fusion, and they're already so strong. I'm still far from them. Kong Xian sighed. Could it be that their bloodlines have surpassed level 8 divine level? Lu Ming asked. That's right. The bloodlines of the 5 great leaders of the central continent are all at the 9th level of the divine level. Fairy Tan Xiang said. He's actually a level 9 divine level expert. Lu Ming was also somewhat amazed. The 9th level of the divine level was the highest level of bloodline. Every single one of these people was extremely terrifying. Bloodline. The higher the level, the greater the difference in talent or bloodline. A 7th-level divine level expert was much stronger than a 6th-level divine level expert. However, a level 8 divine level expert was much stronger than a level 7 divine level expert, regardless of whether it was in terms of talent or the bonuses brought about by his bloodline. As for the 9th level of the divine level, it was even more terrifying. That was because the 9th level of the divine level represented the peak and perfection. It was not something that the 8th level of the divine level could compare to. The difference was too great. If a level 8 divine level expert had the potential to become an emperor, then a level 9 divine level expert would definitely be able to break through to the emperor level as long as they didn't die. In the history of the divine wilderness continent, anyone who had awakened a divine level 9th grade bloodline, as long as they did not die, would break through to the throne. Central Continent's 5 giants were equivalent to a future emperor. No wonder Yang Patian was so arrogant. He always acted as if he was above everyone else. He was destined to become an emperor. Apart from those of the same level, everyone else was just like an ant in his eyes. Perhaps, deep in his heart, he didn't even care about the supreme martial artists.
Clang.
Clang. The battle continued, and it became more and more intense. The two of them were really angry for the Saint Mansion token. Both of them were determined to get the Holy Mansion token. In the blink of an eye, the two had exchanged more than 100 moves. The purple gold token of the Saint Mansion rolled around in their chi. Kacha. Suddenly, the token of the Saint Mansion made a crisp sound and then shattered into pieces in front of everyone's dumbfounded eyes. The token of the Holy Mansion was broken. Everyone was stunned. Even Yang Patian and Tuobashir were stunned. They stopped their battle and looked at each other. No one had expected that the token of the Saint Mansion would break. Wasn't this the token to enter the Saint Mansion? The master of the Holy Mansion was an existence that surpassed emperors. How could the token he made be so easy to break? Impossible. The Holy Mansion's token is sturdy and immortal. It can't be broken. This is fake. This is a fake token. Kong, Xian shouted. A fake token. Everyone looked at each other. I know. Someone threw out a fake token, wanting to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight and come to reap the benefits. Someone guessed. Everyone's eyes flickered. They felt that it was highly possible that someone wanted to fish in troubled waters. Fairy Brother Kong, how did the token appear? Lu Ming asked. I heard that before this, someone shouted that they had found the token, which caused many people to fight for it. Later on, more and more people joined in, and in the end, Yang Patian and Tuobashir were also attracted here. Kong Xian explained. So, no one saw where the token appeared from? Lu Ming asked. Fairy Tanxiang and Kong Xian shook their heads. Before, everyone had fought for the token like crazy when they saw it. No one would have thought that it was fake. Lu Ming nodded. It seemed that someone was really taking advantage of the situation. Damn it, which bastard did this? If I find out, I'll make him wish he was dead. The Sky Eagle castles in Bupo roared angrily. Because of this, the Sky Eagle castle lost a top master and suffered a great loss. The other people also revealed a fierce look. This person who took advantage of the situation was really too hateful. Chapter 1080. 1080 Chapter 1080 Troublemaker. Yang Patian and Tuobashir's eyes were also filled with murderous intent. Someone actually dared to play with them. They really deserved to die. The two of them swept their gazes across the crowd, their killing intent incomparably dense, causing one's body to shiver. In the end, they did not find anyone suspicious. Yang Patian coldly snorted before stepping into the air and leaving. Tuobashir grinned and left as well. Since the token was fake, there was no need for them to continue fighting. After that, the people from the other forces also left. Lu Ming did not leave. He fixed his eyes on a person. It was a slightly chubby young man who looked very simple and honest. However, his eyes were darting around, giving Lu Ming a familiar feeling. Fairy Brother Kong, follow me. Lu Ming said in a low voice. Fairy Tanxiang and Kong Xian were stunned for a moment. Then, they nodded and followed Lu Ming in a certain direction. In front of him, the plain young man was walking slowly among the mountains. His steps did not seem fast, but his speed was extremely fast. The three of them concealed their auras and followed the young man in the forest. Fairy Tanxiang and Kong Xian were curious. They did not know why Lu Ming wanted to follow this young man. Could it be that Lu Ming had noticed something? After traveling for 10,000 miles, the young man in front of him stopped. He looked around, and with a flash of light, his appearance changed completely. He turned into a monk. An unscrupulous monk. Lu Ming could tell at one glance that this monk was the unscrupulous monk he had met previously. The holy monk of the Western Desert. The three of them hid behind a rock and concealed their auras as much as possible. Kong Xian transmitted her voice to the other two. He could only transmit his voice because the distance was too close. If he spoke, no matter how soft his voice was, the unscrupulous monk would still be able to hear him. AI. At this time, the monk sighed and reached into his pocket. He took out a purple gold token. The three of them were dumbfounded. Wasn't this the token of the Saint Mansion? It was exactly the same as the previous one. My hair is white, my Buddha is merciful. It's a pity that only a few experts died this time. Yang Patian and Tuo Bashir were not injured. I was thinking that both of them would suffer great losses. The monk mumbled softly, but Lu Ming and the other two heard him clearly. The three of them looked at each other, especially Fairy Tanxiang and Kong Xian, whose eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It was actually this guy. It was this guy who threw out the fake Saint Mansion token and started the war. Weren't Western Desert Saint monks supposed to be merciful and save all sentient beings? But how could this guy do such a thing? Fairy Tanxiang and Kong Xian were really in a daze. Lu Ming was better off as he was mentally prepared. He had seen how unscrupulous this monk was previously. Looks like I'll have to do it again, the heartless monk muttered and revealed a harmless smile. He waved his sleeves and strode away. Lu Ming and the other two stared at each other. In the end, they did not continue to follow them. They returned to the place where the battle had taken place and gathered with the people from the Tianxia Academy and the Valley of Medicine Masters. Brother Kong, why haven't we been able to get close to the Holy Mansion? I've flown for millions of miles, but it still seems extremely far away. Lu Ming had some doubts. The Saint Mansion should be several million li ahead, but because it hasn't fully manifested yet, it looks extremely far away and can't be approached. In fact, we've been approaching it all this time. Kong Xian explained. The Tianxia Academy knew the most about the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. Lu Ming nodded. He flew in the direction of the Saint Mansion with the rest. Hundreds of thousands of miles later, there's a Holy Mansion token up ahead.
What?
The Holy Mansion's token is mine. Let's go. They heard loud shouts as figures tore through the void and flew in one direction. That monk is stirring things up again. Kong Xian gritted her teeth. Let's go and take a look, but don't make a move. Fairy Tanxiang said. Everyone flew over. Sure enough, a terrifying battle had taken place in a place, and corpses kept falling. They saw a chubby young man in the forest below. His eyes were rolling. It was the transformation of the unscrupulous monk. At this moment, the monk was running around and picking up the storage rings of the dead. Fairy Tanxiang and Kong Xian's eyelids twitched. Is he really a saint monk from the Western Desert? It can't be fake, right? Fairy Tanxiang's eyes widened in disbelief. This had completely shattered her understanding of Western Desert's saint monk. It should be true. I've fought with him before, and I used a Buddhist technique. Lu Ming said. This unscrupulous monk was unfathomable. He was young, but his combat strength was extremely terrifying. After that, Lu Ming and the others left the place because the token of the Saint Mansion must be fake. It must be that unscrupulous monk who is stirring up trouble. The group flew for millions of miles. In front of them, a huge mountain peak appeared. The mountain peak was bare, without any vegetation, only rocks. At this time, the entire mountain peak was covered with inscriptions that were shining brightly. High up in the sky, the wind and clouds gathered, and the huge palace was faintly discernible. It seemed to be in the sky, but it had not fully manifested. There were thousands of figures standing far away from the mountain peak. They were all experts from the major forces.
Roar.
Roar. Terrifying roars were heard. On the mountain peak, dozens of powerful beasts were fighting fiercely, and blood chi filled the sky. Lu Ming and the rest looked from afar and were extremely shocked. In the secret realm, those powerful existences were coming here, but they were fighting each other on the mountain peak. Why was that? The roars continued, and the battle was extremely fierce. Those who could make it here were all at the 7th level of the spiritual god realm and above. They were killing each other.
Ow.
A wolf's howl was incomparably mournful. Lu Ming saw a huge Selavira wolf over 100 meters tall. However, its heart was grabbed by a huge eagle, and it fell on the mountain peak. Its blood seeped into the mountain peak, making it shine even more brightly.
Gah.
The giant eagle was not in a good state either. Its wings were grabbed by a giant ape and torn off with a tearing sound. Then, its stomach was cut open by a giant centipede. They were all giant beasts in an intense battle. Giant beasts fell and were torn apart one after another. A huge snake the size of a mountain was cut into pieces by a huge mantis. However, the mantis's head was also bitten off by the huge snake before it died.
Buzz.
Whoosh. There were more and more people, but all of them stopped far away from the mountain peak and looked at this scene in shock. Half a day later, all the giant beasts had fallen on the mountain peak. Their blood had seeped into the mountain peak, as if they had become nourishment for the mountain. In the sky, the ancient palace rumbled as wind and clouds gathered, as if it would appear at any moment. At this moment, everyone finally dared to approach the mountain. At a glance, Lu Ming saw more than 5,000 people. Lu Ming saw Yang Patian, Tuoba Shi, and the Divine Emperor. Junior Brother Wu, is he the person you were talking about? Suddenly, a cold voice was heard, and a murderous gaze was fixed on Lu Ming. Lu Ming turned around and frowned. A group of young and middle-aged men with swords on their backs stood not far away. Some of them were looking at Lu Ming with cold eyes. Wu Chengkong. Lu Ming saw Wu Chengkong inside. Chapter 1081. 1081 Chapter 1081 Fighting the Top 3. These were the experts of the Heavenly Sword faction. Senior brother, that's him. His name is Lu Shaoqing. Wu Chengkong said to a man in his 40s. Humph. The man in his prime stepped forward, his eyes cold as he stared at Lu Ming. Lu Shaoqing, how dare you touch someone from the gifted sword sect? I don't think you'll be able to live in this world. The brawny man's aura was overbearing, and his body revealed a powerful aura. The other people on the field heard the commotion and looked over. Lu Shaoqing. Among them, Jing Kongling, Jun Yue, and Yin Bupo were a little surprised. They had all seen Lu Ming before and were slightly surprised when they looked at him. Isn't that the trash with 5 combat skills? That's right, it's him. Did he offend the Heavenly Martial Sword School? He's really courting death. Why do I feel like Wu Chengkong lost to him? Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked the masters of the previous generation to come out and fight him himself. It's true, no way? Is that trash that powerful? Many people recognized Lu Ming. They were in a heated discussion and had all sorts of guesses. Lu Ming cast a casual glance at the middle-aged man and shifted his gaze to Wu Chengkong. Wu Chengkong, I let you go last time. It seems that you have not learned your lesson. I will send you on your way. Everyone was shocked. Could it be that Wu Chengkong had really suffered a loss at the hands of Lu Ming? Lu Shaoqing, don't be so arrogant. You're the one who's going to die today. Wu Qingkong's face was cold. He wished he could cut Lu Ming into 8 pieces.
Buzz. Buzz.
The sound of a sword rang out. The disciples of the Sky Martial Sword School all emitted a strong sword chi. Their eyes were like swords as they stared at Lu Ming. Buzz. Another burly man stepped out and stood with the previous man. His aura was shocking. So there are 2 experts in the 4th level of the spiritual god realm. Lu Ming's lips curled into a faint smile. There were 2 experts in the 4th level of the spiritual god realm in the Tianwu sword faction. Judging from their auras, they were not weaker than Xue Feng and should be in the same realm as him. Oh no, it's them. Brother Lu, these 2 are the 2 strongest heaven's favorites from the previous generation of the heavenly martial sword faction. They have both awakened 7th level divine level bloodlines. Fairy Tan Xiang said worriedly. Heavenly martial sword faction, don't go too far. If you want to kill Brother Lu, you have to go through our Tianxia Academy first. Kong Xian stepped forward and stared at the people from the Heavenly Martial Sword School. They had seen Lu Ming's attacks before, and they were indeed powerful. He could injure Xue Feng and force him to retreat in a sorry state. But now, there were 2 experts like Xue Feng in the Sky Martial Sword faction. When Lu Ming fought Xue Feng, he had a hard time. He would definitely be no match for 2 of them. Tianxia Academy, if you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. A 4th level spiritual god realm middle-aged man from the Tianwu sword faction said coldly and domineeringly. What big words! From Tianxia Academy, a man in his 30s stepped out with an explosive aura. This was the strongest person from the Tianxia Academy who had entered this time. He was also the number 1 genius of the previous generation and was at the same level as Xue Feng. It had to be said that the geniuses of the previous generation were far inferior to those of the current generation. Those who had awakened to the 7th level of the divine level could be considered the number 1 geniuses of their respective factions. He couldn't be compared to this generation's heaven's favorites. The difference was too big. It was as if all the transportation had been added to this generation, allowing this generation to enter a golden age. Haha, my 2 martial brothers, how about you count me in to kill Lu Shaoqing? With a sneer, a middle-aged man in a blood-red robe stepped through the air. It was Xue Feng. When he was injured by Lu Ming, he had been waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. Now that he saw Lu Ming going up against the people from the Heaven Martial Sword faction, how could he miss this great opportunity? Xue Feng, you've come at the right time. Let's join forces and kill this person. A young man from the Heavenly Martial Sword sect said. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on them. This Lu Shaoqing had offended so many people. It seemed that he would die today. At this moment, Fairy Tan Xiang, Kong Xian, and the white-robed man from Tianxia Academy all had ugly expressions. If it was only the Heavenly Martial Sword faction, they might still be able to fight. But with Xue Feng, it would be difficult. You're all here.
Just in time.
Let's settle this today. Lu Ming smiled faintly and took a step forward, causing everyone to be stunned. What did he just say? In the face of such a situation, he actually said that he wanted to Solivir it all at once. Was he crazy? Fairy Tan Xiang and the others were also stunned. Brother Lu. Fairy Tan Xiang called out. Fairy Brother Kong. Just leave this place to me. Lu Ming smiled at Fairy Tan Xiang and the others, then stepped forward and faced Xue Feng and the others. Brother Wu, this kid has a secret technique that is very evil. It can seal one's movements. Let's work together to kill him. Xue Feng whispered to the 2 experts from the Heavenly Martial Sword faction. All right. The 2 experts from the Sky Martial Sword faction nodded. They had heard from Wu Qingkong about the battle between Lu Ming and Xue Feng. They knew that Lu Ming was extraordinary and that he had a strong front. They did not dare to be careless.
Boom. Boom.
Boom. The 2 powerhouses from the Sky Martial Sword faction, Xue Feng and the other 2, all released their powerful auras at the same time. Their shocking auras soared into the sky and pressed down on Lu Ming.
Buzz, buzz, buzz.
The three of them moved and surrounded Lu Ming. The three of them are joining forces to deal with Lu Shaoqing? How could this be? Could it be that Lu Shaoqing's true combat strength is extremely powerful? Otherwise, why would Xue Feng and the others take him so seriously and need three people to work together? The crowd wasn't fools. They knew that something was amiss when they saw the reactions of Xue Feng and the other two.
They were shocked by this guess.
Other than the top 5 young geniuses, who else was worthy of Xue Feng and the others' attention? Brat, weren't you very arrogant? Let's see how you'll die. Xue Feng's eyes were cold. In the next moment, he activated his blood meridian and used blood meridian fusion to pounce on Lu Ming. Kill.
Die.
Lu Ming bellowed as his third bloodline emerged. A wisp of energy surged into his body, turning his hair blood red, and his killing intent surged out like a tidal wave. At the same time, the 7 streams of dragon energy burst forth at the same time, increasing Lu Ming's strength to a terrifying level. The third bloodline turned into a blood-red sword in Lu Ming's hand. He swung the sword, and a blood-red sword light cut through the void, illuminating the sky and slashing at Xue Feng. This strength. At this moment, Xue Feng's eyes suddenly widened as he was terrified. This power was too shocking. It was much stronger than the last time he fought with Lu Ming, much stronger. Not good. Xue Feng's body turned cold as he tried his best to resist. But dash. With a pft sound, the sword light cut through, and the blood leopard that Xue Feng had transformed into had one of its claws cut off and flew far away. Xue Feng roared and quickly retreated. At this moment, the 2 experts from the Sky Martial Sword faction had also arrived. 2 vast sword gleams as large as mountains were slashing toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming swung his sword in reverse and destroyed the 2 sword gleams. He did not stop and rushed toward Xue Feng. Xue Feng was terrified and quickly retreated. You can't leave. Lu Ming sneered. He formed a hand seal, and a door of light appeared. Chapter 1082. 1082 Killing 3 Great Experts. The 9 seals of the Gate of God appeared. It shone with light and pressed down on Xue Feng. Enveloped by the light of the Gate of Sealing, Blood Seal was frozen in the air. He tried his best to burst out his true essence in an attempt to break the door seal. However, Lu Ming's cultivation had now advanced to the 2nd level of the spiritual god realm. The door seal that he had condensed was even more powerful. For a moment, the blood seal could not be broken at all. No. He was extremely anxious and kept growling. Buzz. Lu Ming rushed over, and the sword light slashed down. With a bang, the blood leopard was cut in half. Xue Feng's true body appeared, spitting out a large mouthful of blood and a deep wound on his chest. He wanted to retreat, but the sealing door was still there.
He could not even retreat.
No, spare my life.
No.
Xue Feng shouted in fear, but what greeted him was a sword light. Puchi. Xue Feng was split in half, and even the spiritual god in his body couldn't escape. All of this happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. It happened so fast that many people didn't even have time to react. It was already too late for the 2 experts of the Sky Martial Sword faction to rescue him. Why would I? The 2 experts from the Heavenly Martial Sword faction were about to launch a fierce attack on Lu Ming. When they saw this scene, their pupils constricted and they subconsciously stopped in their tracks. CSI. Gasps could be heard all around. Xue Feng was dead. He was killed by Lu Ming in 2 moves. He could not put up any resistance at all. How is this possible? Xue Feng had awakened a 7th level divine level bloodline, and his cultivation had already reached the 4th level of the spiritual god realm. His combat strength was absolutely terrifying, but he was easily killed by Lu Ming. It was unbelievable. Fairy Tanxiang, Kong Xin, and the people from Medicine King's Valley and Tianxia Academy were also dumbfounded. They were completely stunned and couldn't believe this scene. Wu Chengkong was tongue-tied and almost scared to death. It had only been a few days. A few days ago, Lu Ming could only fight to a draw with Xue Feng. With the help of the ceiling door, he barely had the upper hand. But now, he had completely crushed Xue Feng. It had only been a few days, and Lu Ming's combat strength had increased by a huge margin. This was too shocking. Now it's your turn. Lu Ming looked at the two experts from the Heavenly Sword faction. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind, and his killing intent surged. The expressions of the two experts from the Heavenly Martial Sword School changed drastically, and they no longer had the confidence they had earlier. Brother Lu, in my opinion, this is all a misunderstanding. One of them revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. They were terrified that Lu Ming could kill Xue Feng in such a thunderous way, even though he was surrounded by the three of them. Misunderstanding? No, there's no misunderstanding. I'm going to kill you today. I don't need a reason. Lu Ming said indifferently. In the next moment, he took a step forward and rushed toward the two of them like a bloody light. Damn it! Let's attack together and kill this brat. The two of them roared and activated their bloodlines at the same time, turning them into two huge combat swords. Without a doubt, both of them had 7th-level divine-level bloodlines and had comprehended divine-level martial techniques. Their combat strength was extremely terrifying. Buzz.
Whoosh.
The sound of a sword rang out. The other experts of the Heavenly Sword faction all moved. Their combat swords were unsheathed, and their sword chi soared to the sky as they charged towards Lu Ming. Seal. The blood-red sword floated in his hands and formed a seal. A sealing gate flew out and covered a huge sword. In an instant, the huge sword could not move. Kill. Lu Ming wielded his combat sword and sent one of the combat swords flying. At the same time, he took a few steps forward, and the terrifying power of the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps suddenly burst out.
Boom. Boom.
Boom. He took 7 steps and landed on the sword that was sealed by the door. The sword immediately collapsed, and its body appeared. However, there was a flash of sword light, and the head fell to the ground. This person's spiritual god flew out of his body in a panic and was extremely frightened.
Bang. Bang.
Lu Ming's left hand executed the prison-suppressing heaven technique, and he struck out continuously. He held the blood sword in his right hand and executed the 5 styles massacre.
Clang.
The remaining 4th-level spiritual god realm expert's combat sword was sent flying, and the sword's body kept shaking. The blood-red sword slashed out tens of thousands of sword chi. The spiritual god that escaped let out a blood-curdling scream before turning into ashes. At the same time, a few experts from the Heavenly Sword faction who had rushed over were killed by the sword chi. Lu Ming transformed into a god of death and charged towards the last 4th-level spiritual god realm expert. Escape, escape, escape. At this moment, the person was scared out of his wits and was running for his life. Lu Ming was too powerful. In terms of strength alone, Lu Ming had completely surpassed him. Together with the sealing door, they were simply invincible. Where are you going? Lu Ming had his eyes on him. He dashed past him and killed a few more experts from the Heavenly Martial Sword faction. In an instant, Lu Ming closed in at top speed. He formed a seal with both hands, and another sealing door appeared. The combat sword was instantly fixed in place. Lu Ming charged forward. No, spare me, help. The man roared, but the result was already decided. Lu Ming caught up and killed him with lightning-like methods. Since then, the 3 experts who wanted to kill Lu Ming were all killed by him. Not a single one was left alive. He even killed a few experts from the Sky Martial Sword School. When the other members of the Heavenly Martial Sword faction saw this, they were extremely frightened. How could they dare to fight? They all fled. So strong. The rest of the people at the scene looked at Lu Ming in shock. They were tongue-tied and completely speechless. Lu Ming's combat strength was too shocking to be able to kill 3 experts in succession. High up in the sky, Yang Patian and Tuoba sure looked at Lu Ming with grave expressions. Before this, they had not paid attention to anyone else except for each other. However, Lu Ming had now attracted their attention. It seems that we have another opponent. Tuoba sure licked his lips as his eyes gleamed with battle intent. Yang Potion's eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything. Just when everyone thought that the battle had ended, Lu Ming did not stop because there was still one person who had not died. Wu Chengkong. Wu Chengkong was running for his life, terrified. Damn it! How is this Lu Shaoqing so terrifying? His combat strength is rising too quickly. When we get out of here, I'll have the powerful cultivators in the sect kill him. He can't be allowed to live. All kinds of vengeful thoughts swirled in Wu Chengkong's mind. Suddenly, he heard a whooshing sound. He looked back in shock and saw that Lu Ming had already arrived behind him. Boom. Lu Ming could not be bothered to waste his breath on him. He threw a punch and shattered Wu Chengkong into pieces. However, Wu Chengkong obviously had a destiny talisman. With a flash of white light, the destiny talisman wrapped him up and he disappeared in the air. Lu Ming snorted coldly and flew back to his original spot. At that moment, everyone looked at Lu Ming with respect. He was too powerful. Lu Ming's combat strength was far above that of an ordinary second-grade Heaven's favorite. His combat strength was already on par with the 5 magnates. It seemed that there would be another young giant in the world. Brother Lu. Fairy Tan Xiang's beautiful eyes flickered as she looked at Lu Ming. She was at a loss for words. Oh, I just happened to have a breakthrough in my cultivation when I left 2 days ago. Lu Ming explained. Fairy Tan Xiang and Kong Xian roared in their hearts. This was too abnormal. He had broken through after leaving for 2 days. This was too fast. It was really infuriating to compare. Chapter 1083. 1083 The Real Token of the Saint Mansion. Tianxia Academy. Outside the Wanxiang Jade Wall. The space moved, and Wu Chengkong appeared in a flash of white light. Ah, damn it! Wu Chengkong roared as soon as he appeared. Everyone's eyes turned to him in unison. Chengkong, what's going on? A supreme martial artist from the Tianwu Sword faction looked at Wu Chengkong and asked with a frown. Wu Chengkong had been killed, which meant that the 2 elites of the Tianwu Sword faction had both died in the battle. Lu Shaoqing. It's that bastard Lu Shaoqing. Wu Chengkong roared like a wild beast.
What?
Lu Shaoqing again? Lu Shaoqing is a killer. First, he killed the Cold-Blood Hall disciples and many other masters. Then, he killed Wu Tsong and now, even Wu Chengkong. Hee. 2 Heaven's favorites from the Heavenly Martial Sword faction died at the hands of the same person. Interesting. Cold-Blood Hall's face darkened. Why did they have to be invulnevered every time Lu Shaoqing was mentioned? Lu Shaoqing again.
Why?
You're not with Wulong and the others? The supreme martial artist from the Heavenly Martial Sword faction asked. The Wulong he was talking about was the #1 Heaven's favorite of the previous generation of the Heavenly Martial Sword faction. Wulong and the others have been killed. They're dead. Wu Chengkong said through gritted teeth.
What?
Wulong and the others were also dead.
Who was it?
Could it be Yang Patian? The supreme martial artist from the Heavenly Martial Sword School shouted angrily, thinking that it was Yang Patian who had done it. No, it's Lu Shaoqing. It's all his doing. Senior brothers Wulong, Wu Kai, and Xue Feng were supposed to work together to kill Lu Shaoqing, but they were killed by him instead. It's all his doing. Wu Chengkong's face was twisted as he explained the situation. The scene suddenly became quiet. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. Lu Shaoqing was the one who had done all of this. He had managed to achieve such a feat despite the combined efforts of 3 powerful experts. This was simply too shocking. Another big shot. An old man sighed. The people of Coldblood Hall wanted to cry. It was so sad that they had sent such a god of death with them. The secret realm of the Saint Mansion. Buzz. At this moment, the giant mountain was shaking and the light was even more dazzling. Everyone's attention was drawn back to the giant mountain. Lu Ming's eyes also fell on the huge mountain. He did not devour the blood essence of Shui Feng and the others because the Emperor God was here. His devouring method was too obvious, and he was afraid that the Emperor God would notice something. Now was not the time to reveal his identity. The light from the huge mountain became more and more brilliant. In the end, 9 rays of purple light shot out. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a token flew out from each of the purple lights. The token of the Saint Mansion, it's the token of the Saint Mansion. Snatch it. There are 9 pieces, this one is mine. Instantly, the scene was in chaos. All kinds of auras burst out and rushed toward the 9 tokens. There was no doubt that the token that rushed out of the mountain was the real token of the Saint Mansion. Get lost. Yang Patian shouted in anger. His momentum was astonishing. He swept out his halberd, and dozens of experts screamed as they were cut in half and died on the spot. Yang Patian grabbed a token of the Saint Mansion in his hand and scanned the surroundings with lightning-like eyes. Everyone was shocked and didn't dare to step forward. On the other side, Tuoba sure waved his mace and smashed a bunch of people into meat paste. He then grabbed a Saint Mansion token. The others sighed. Knowing these 2 tokens, they could forget about it. I'm back in this piece. Lu Ming stepped forward and rushed to the nearest Saint Mansion token. His terrifying killing intent burst out. Many people were enveloped by his killing intent and retreated quickly, not daring to fight with Lu Ming. The power that Lu Ming had created earlier was too strong. Lu Ming grabbed a Holy Mansion token. Yang Patian, Tuoba Shi, and Lu Ming each had a token. The others did not dare to fight with the 3 of them and could only target the others. This was a bloody battle, and it was extremely intense. The experts of the major forces went all out to fight for the tokens. A palace left behind by an existence above the emperor level was too alluring and attractive. Even an emperor would go crazy if he came, let alone them. People were constantly killed, and corpses fell like rain. In the end, everyone from the Ji family gathered. Under the leadership of a 4th-level spiritual god realm expert, they seized a token. The Tianxia Academy and the Valley of Medicine Masters joined forces and also seized a token under the leadership of a 4th-level spiritual god realm master. Demon Mountain obtained a token. The most surprising thing was that the Emperor God had seized a token with the help of the Space Intent Realm. He was so fast that no one could stop him. There was also a baby-faced monk with big fluttering sleeves who looked harmless. He killed a group of experts with a single palm strike and seized a token. It was a shocking scene. Even Yang Patian and Tuoba Shi looked at this monk with a solemn expression. The holy monk of the Western Desert. Yang Patian muttered to himself. It's that unscrupulous monk again. Lu Ming muttered. The last token was in the hands of the Floating Mountain sect. As for Coldblood Hall, Sky Eagle Fort, and Sky Martial Sword School, they were very unwilling to lose their tokens because their leaders had died in battle. Those who had obtained the tokens were divided into several areas, far away from the others. The others were helpless. Although they were burning with excitement, those who had obtained the tokens now were all very powerful. Only the Emperor God seemed to be the weakest, but he had the space mentality, so no one could catch him. This is the token of the Saint Mansion. With this token, you can enter the Saint Mansion. Lu Ming sized up the token in his hand and channeled his essential core. Buzz. The token of the Saint Mansion suddenly trembled and glowed. A circle of light enveloped Lu Ming. Other than that, there were 3 more circles of light floating around him. Why are there 3 more rings of light? Lu Ming was a little surprised. At this time, the others also realized the problem. As long as they injected their vital essence, 4 rings of light would appear on the token of the Saint Mansion. One of them would cover them, and 3 more would appear. I know. These 3 rings of light represent that I can bring 3 more people in. That should be the case. I'm guessing that there's a large array set up around the Saint Mansion, and only those who are covered by this light circle can enter. Some of them shouted, and their eyes lit up. Wouldn't there be 27 more spots? Many people looked at those who had obtained tokens, especially young Patian. Emperor gods had obtained tokens by themselves, so they had extra spots. Brother D, I'm willing to pay a high price to buy 3 slots. Is that possible? Een Bupo from the Sky Eagle Castle looked at the Divine Emperor and spoke first. Een Bupo, your appetite is too big. You want to buy 3 spots, can you swallow it? Some people were unhappy and wanted to buy a quota from the Emperor God. Brother Yang. Some people looked at Yang Patian, wanting to buy a spot from him. Get lost. Yang Patian coldly spat out. Those people could only retreat. As for Tuabie Sureside, there were a few other Northern Plains Heaven's favorites who had already taken up the spots. Chapter 1084. 1084 Chapter 1084 Fighting a Giant in the Saint Mansion. As for the G family, Floating Mountain, Demon Mountain, and Tianxia Academy, they didn't even have enough for themselves, so they naturally wouldn't sell it. For the time being, only Lu Ming, the unscrupulous monk, and the Emperor and God could use the spots. Brother Lu. Fairy Tan Xiang looked over. I'll give my place to the Valley of the Medicine Masters and the Tianxia Academy. Lu Ming smiled. The people from Medicine King's Valley and Tianxia Academy were overjoyed. This way, they had 3 more places. In the end, the Emperor God sold the 3 spots. The unscrupulous monk smiled and made a huge profit, selling the 3 spots as well. This way, excluding Yang Potion's 3 spots, there were a total of 33 people who could enter.
Buzz.
At this moment, the giant mountain was extremely bright. It formed a huge pillar of light that shot into the sky. The beam of light hit the palace in the sky, giving off a deafening roar.
Boom, boom,
boom. The palace slowly appeared. At first, it seemed real and illusionary, but it slowly became real. After a few minutes, the palace had become completely real. It was filled with an ancient and vicissitude aura. It floated in the air like a huge city. It was extremely large and majestic.
Buzz.
Yang Patian was the first to move. It was as if he was traveling through space. His body moved, and his figure appeared in front of the palace. Then he stepped out and rushed in. Let's go. We can't let Yang Patian get there first. The other people who had a quota called out and rushed forward one after another, afraid that Yang Patian would beat them to it. If there were treasures in the Saint Mansion, the first one to enter would naturally get some benefits.
Buzz. Whoosh.
Dozens of figures, all shrouded in a circle of light, rushed towards the palace. Lu Ming and the rest were among them. In front of the palace, there was a door that was half open. Yang Patian was about to rush in. Charge. The rest of the people also rushed over. Nothing happened. Dozens of people rushed into the gate one after another. The others who didn't have a spot looked at each other. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. We don't need the token to enter. The token was spread by Tianxia Academy, so it might not be true. Someone said, his eyes burning with passion. That's right. I don't think anyone from Tianxia Academy has ever entered it. It's probably not true. Some others agreed.
Charge.
I don't believe it. Someone couldn't hold it in anymore and rushed into the palace. However, as he was flying, he suddenly let out a blood-curdling screech, and his entire body exploded just like that, turning into ashes. The others were dumbfounded. Gluck. Those who had said that they didn't believe what Tianxia Academy had said all took a deep breath and swallowed their saliva. Their faces were pale. If they had acted rashly just now and charged forward first, they would have been the ones to die. As soon as Lu Ming and the rest rushed in, they realized that they were in a huge corridor. It was very long and extended all the way to the front. What a strong pressure! As soon as they entered, everyone landed on the ground because of the powerful pressure. It was a no-fly zone, and their flight was stopped. Moreover, not only could they not fly, but the pressure on their bodies was also extremely great, causing their speed to slow down by more than 100 times. This is gravity. Lu Ming sensed it carefully and realized that it was gravity. The gravity was 100 times stronger than outside. Everyone circulated their true yuan and stepped forward. However, the gravity was too strong. Their speed was similar to that of an ordinary person's running. Compared to their original speed, it was a huge difference. And this corridor seemed to be no less than 100 miles. But since he had entered this place, he could only bravely move forward. Gradually, the distance between them widened.
Bang!
Bang! Yang Patian walked at the forefront. His body was glowing as he strode forward. Then, Tuoba Shi's muscles bulged and he strode forward like a savage beast. In addition, Lu Ming's speed was also extremely fast, second only to Tuoba Shi. As for the unscrupulous monk, his body was covered in golden light as he walked beside Lu Ming. The two of them had come in a little later, so they were slightly behind Yang Patian and his companion. Behind them were a few burly men. They were the strongest geniuses of the previous generation in their respective forces, and their cultivation had reached the 4th level of the spiritual god realm. Surprisingly, the Emperor God was also walking beside these people. He had the will of space, so he was under less pressure. As for second-grade heavens favorites like Fairy Tanxiang and Kong Xian, they were slightly behind. Everyone pushed forward with all their might. Slowly, they got used to the gravity here, and their speed became faster and faster. This journey took 2 days. Yang Patian was the first to walk out of the corridor and rush out. "Stop right there." Tuoba Shi hollered and followed closely behind Yang Patian. Following that, Lu Ming and the unscrupulous monk also stepped out and walked out of the corridor.
Boom! Boom!
As soon as they walked out of the corridor, they heard a violent roar. In front of the corridor was a large hall, where Tuoba Shi and Yang Patian were engaged in an intense battle. The Heaven Scorcher halberd and the Wolf Fang Club continued to exchange blows, and the deafening rumbles were deafening. On both sides of the hall, there were rows of shilavirs. On the shilavirs, there were some jade bottles, jade boxes, and boxes. It was obvious that the two of them were fighting for these items. This was the legendary Saint Mansion that surpassed the Emperor level. How precious would the things inside be? Without a second thought, Lu Ming and the heartless monk's eyes lit up, and they rushed to the shilavirs on both sides. "Get lost! You're looking for death!" Yang Patian and Tuoba Shi roared as they charged at the two of them. Tuoba Shi attacked the heartless monk. He waved his mace and crushed the void like a mountain range. "My hair is white, my Buddha is merciful." The heartless monk chanted the name of Buddha, and his entire body emitted golden light. His appearance was solemn like the reincarnation of Buddha. He struck out a golden palm print and clashed with a wolf fang club. With a boom, it actually blocked Tuoba Shi's attack. The two of them began a great battle. On the other side, Yang Patian was charging toward Lu Ming. As the heavenly halberd slashed down, the space around it shattered. It even turned into spatial power that wrapped around the heavenly halberd, making it even more destructive. Lu Ming's 5-colored will surrounded him, and he had 7 streams of dragon energy on him. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind. The combat sword formed by his 3rd bloodline changed, and actually turned into a blood-red combat halberd. The 3rd bloodline was a drop of blood. It could change at will, be it a sword, a spear, a saber, a halberd, etc. It could change at will without a fixed shape. Clang! Lu Ming wielded the blood halberd and slashed down, clashing with Yang Potion's heavenly halberd. Clang! A terrifying tremor spread out, and the two figures swayed slightly. Then they began to fight again.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom. In the main hall, the four of them engaged in a peak battle. For a moment, it was difficult to determine who was superior. Peak of the second level of the spiritual god realm. Lu Ming discovered that Yang Potion's cultivation was at the peak of the second level of the spiritual god realm, not much higher than his. However, his combat strength was extremely terrifying. He was the strongest young expert that Lu Ming had ever encountered. The four of them were in a chaotic battle in the hall, and in the blink of an eye, they exchanged dozens of moves. Not far away, footsteps could be heard. It was obvious that the others were approaching. Chapter 1085. 1085 Chapter 1085 Emperor Weapon. The eyes of the four people flashed, and they abandoned their opponents almost at the same time, rushing toward the Shieloviers on both sides. They understood that they couldn't do anything to their opponents for the time being. If they continued to fight, the scene would become even more chaotic when more people appeared. Therefore, the four of them began to search for treasures on the Shieloviers at the same time. Lu Ming waved his hand, and a white light emanated. It enveloped the jade bottles, jade boxes, and metal boxes on the Shieloviers. They were all stored into the mountain and river diagram. He didn't have time to see what it was, so he put it away first. The four of them went on a frenzied raid, and in just a few breaths, the items on the Shieloviers had been swept clean. The unscrupulous monk, in particular, had actually forcefully kept a shelf into his storage ring, leaving everyone speechless. However, Lu Ming and the rest soon followed suit and kept the shelf. At this moment, a few more figures rushed out of the corridor. They looked at the empty hall on both sides and were stunned.
Buzz. Whoosh.
At this moment, Lu Ming and the rest had already rushed into the depths of the hall. There was a huge door there. Charge. The few experts behind them, including the Emperor God, rushed forward at the same time and followed closely behind Lu Ming and the rest. After rushing through the door, there was another hall, but this one was bigger and empty. Opposite the hall, there was another door, from which a faint light emanated. Their eyes lit up and they quickly rushed in. It was still a large hall, but this hall was exceptionally wide. In the air above the hall, there were 4 balls of light, shining with a dazzling light. Those were 4 weapons floating in the air. They were of different colors, but they exuded a terrifying pressure. This is an Emperor's spiritual weapon. Yang Patian growled and immediately rushed towards one of the treasures. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. The so-called Emperor's spiritual weapon was the Emperor of spiritual weapons, just like the martial Emperor of the martial artists, standing at the peak of many spiritual weapons. The Emperor's spiritual weapon was a top-grade 9th level spiritual weapon. Even some emperors might not have one, as it had a domain that could assist them in battle. Even emperors would be envious of this place, let alone them. They immediately rushed toward one of the king's spiritual weapons. Lu Ming rushed towards a small fiery red pagoda. The pagoda seemed to be cast from fire jade, and it emitted an astonishing amount of heat. An Emperor's spiritual weapon. Behind them, the other experts had also arrived. When they saw the Emperor's spiritual weapons, their eyes turned red with greed as they pounced on the 4 weapons. One of them pounced on Lu Ming. One of them was a brawny man in his 40s with a cultivation of the 4th level of the spiritual god realm. The other was an emperor god. However, Lu Ming was 1 step faster. His body was like a stream of light as he appeared in front of the small tower and reached out to grab it. However, just as Lu Ming was about to grab it, the small tower emitted a light circle. Lu Ming's grab did not go in. Inscription formation. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. This small tower was protected by an inscription array. However, Lu Ming felt that he could break it if he spent some time.
Bang.
Lu Ming changed his claw to a palm and struck the circle of light.
Bang.
The ring of light trembled, but it still blocked the attack. At that moment, the Emperor God and the brawny man rushed over. The Emperor's spiritual weapon is mine. The brawny man's eyes were red as he charged at the small tower. The Emperor God's sword hit the ring of light, but it was still intact. Get lost.
Die.
Lu Ming shouted coldly and swept his blood halberd at the burly man and the Emperor God at the same time. The two of them were shocked and tried to block it at the same time. The blood halberd carried a terrifying killing intent that rolled like a tide and suppressed everything. It blasted toward the two of them. With a bang, their bodies shook violently and they were swept away by Lu Ming.
Kill.
Lu Ming stared at the Emperor God and charged at him. He planned to kill Di Shen here. Di Shen was Di Yi's most outstanding junior. If he killed Di Shen, Di Yi would be heartbroken. Who? The blood halberd pressed down and struck at the Emperor God's head. The Emperor God's expression was extremely grave. The space around him trembled like water. Great space splitting slash. Lu Ming, the Emperor God said in a serious voice. He held the sword with both hands and slashed. The space rolled, and a terrible crack was slashed at Lu Ming. This crack had the power to cut through space and could cut through anything. Of course, this was relative. The blood halberd in Lu Ming's hand transformed into the blood sword again. The sword radiance flashed, and the space was cut open, including the space crack. This was the terrifying aspect of the 5 slaughter moves. No matter what weapon was used, it could display its power. This was because the 5 slaughter forms were not moves, but focused on intent. Once the intent was there, any weapon could unleash its power. The Emperor God's expression changed drastically, and he retreated rapidly.
Kill.
Lu Ming's blood-red hair flew in the air. His killing intent surged like a tide. He stepped forward and charged at the Emperor God. Buzz. The Emperor God tried his best to resist, but he was no match for it. He spat out blood and retreated, his face pale. Emperor God was indeed powerful. He had combined space mentality, sword mentality, and golden flame mentality. After his space mentality reached level 4, it became even more mysterious and terrifying. He was even more powerful than Wu Qingkong. However, compared to Lu Ming, he was still a distance away. He was no match at all. Lu Ming's eyes were cold as he approached the Emperor God. The Emperor God had no choice but to use instant step, his figure flashing constantly.
Buzz. Buzz.
Lu Ming formed a seal with both hands, and a sealing gate was formed. Di Shen's expression changed drastically. He had seen Lu Ming use the sealing gate to seal Shuefeng and the others, and then kill them. Spatial shift. The Emperor God roared and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, his body turned illusory. With a final bang, his body collapsed and turned into an illusion. His real body had long disappeared without a trace. No one knew where he had fled to. Lu Ming looked at the line of defense outside the hall. The Emperor God had passed through space and appeared in a hall outside. What a wonderful space concept. Lu Ming's eyes glinted coldly. He did not continue to pursue him. There were plenty of opportunities to kill the Emperor God. Get lost. He turned around and charged towards the brawny man. The brawny man was currently doing his best to break the small pagoda's formation. Lu Ming charged back and struck out with his palm, causing the burly man to spit blood and fly back. He looked at Lu Ming with an extremely grave expression. On the other side, an expert from each side rushed towards Yang Patian, the unscrupulous monk, and Tuoba Shi. The experts who rushed towards the unscrupulous monk and Tuoba Shi were forced to retreat while spitting out blood. As for the experts who rushed towards Yang Patian, they were trapped by Yang Potion's space mentality and killed in one fell swoop. Yang Patian was very unhappy today. Originally in the central continent, he was high and mighty. Other than the other 4 of the top 5 young warriors, no one was his match. However, in this trip to the secret realm of the Saint Mansion, Tuoba Shi had appeared first. His combat strength was not weaker than his, and he had fought with him several times. Behind him, Lu Ming and the unscrupulous monk appeared one after another, displaying their shocking combat strength. They were not weaker than him. Moreover, he had never seen them before. This made him extremely unhappy, and his heart was burning with anger. Lu Ming took a glance and continued to crack the small pagoda's array. Chapter 1086. 1086 Chapter 1086 Shocking Change. The other experts' expressions were unsightly, but they did not dare to continue snatching. Lu Ming's group of 4 were too powerful and were obviously stronger than them. If they went crazy and attacked them with all their might, they would be in danger. At that moment, no one dared to fight with Lu Ming and the rest. However, after a flash of light in their eyes, they bypassed Lu Ming and the others and rushed into the depths of the hall. There was another door there that led inside.
Boom. Boom.
Lu Ming continued to attack. His third bloodline turned into a combat sword and slashed at the light shield that protected the small tower. After dozens of attacks, he finally broke the light shield. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He grabbed the small pagoda. It's so hot. Lu Ming felt that his palm was about to be burnt, and there was a meaty fragrance. Lu Ming quickly sent the small tower into the mountain and river diagram. Almost at the same time, Yang Patian and the others also broke the formation and kept the treasures. At the same time, the 4 of them spread out and rushed inside. There was another hall inside.
Boom. Boom. Boom.
As soon as he entered the hall, he saw the few experts fighting fiercely. There was only one thing floating in the air of the hall. It was a jade plate. It was crystal clear and exuded a vast and endless pressure. This pressure was too shocking and surpassed everything. It was as if it was the incarnation of the entire heaven and earth. It was extremely terrifying and far exceeded the previous emperor's spiritual weapon. What kind of treasure is this? It's too shocking. Lu Ming was a little stunned. Yang Patian and the others were also stunned. Then, their eyes lit up. Judging from its aura, it was beyond an emperor's spiritual weapon. It must be a peerless divine weapon used by someone who had surpassed a martial emperor. It seemed that the Tianxia Academy was right. This was indeed the mansion of someone who had surpassed a martial emperor. A divine weapon used by an existence beyond the martial emperor realm. How terrifying was that?
Buzz. Whoosh.
Almost at the same time, the 4 of them pounced toward the jade plate. Get lost. Kill. The attacks of these few people were blasted towards those experts. Their faces changed greatly, and they hurriedly blocked it, but retreated with injuries. Damn it. The few of them were furious and extremely aggrieved, but they were helpless. They were truly helpless. They were all Heaven's pride experts of the previous generation. In their era, they were all all-powerful figures. They were high and mighty, looking down on Heaven's pride experts of the same generation. However, after 10 or 20 years, this generation had reached the golden age. Each and every Heaven's pride expert was more brilliant than them by who knew how many times. Now, even the people of the younger generation were going to berate them and crush them. This made them feel a wave of sadness. This treasure is mine. Yang Potion's eyes flashed with cold, killing intent. Ridiculous, who do you think you are? Tuoba sure shouted coldly, not giving Yang Patian any face at all. I think this treasure is fated with this poor monk. Please don't fight with this poor monk over it. The unscrupulous monk still had a smile on his face, but his fiery eyes betrayed him. Lu Ming could not be bothered to waste his breath on them. He dashed toward the jade plate.
Boom.
A golden palm print was aimed at Lu Ming. It was that unscrupulous monk. Benefactor, this treasure is really fated with this little monk. Why do you have to snatch it from this little monk? The monk said. Fate my ass. Stinky monk, get lost. Lu Ming slashed his sword at the heartless monk, and it collided with the golden palm print. Almsgiver, don't be angry. The monk called out, but his palm didn't stop. His body glowed like a golden Buddha, and he struck out a few times with terrifying power. Stinky monk, don't pretend in front of me. It was you who used a fake Saint Mansion token to cause a war, right? Don't think that others don't know. I happened to see it. Lu Ming said loudly. The moment he said that, the monk's face froze. Yang Patian and Tuo Bashir, who were in the middle of a fierce battle, both stopped and looked at the unscrupulous monk with cold eyes. So, it was you who was causing trouble. Stinky monk, hand over your life. Yang Patian roared and charged towards the monk. Tuo Bashir also held his mace and charged at the monk. The two of them were filled with killing intent towards the unscrupulous monk. What kind of people were they? How could they be fooled by the unscrupulous monk? They had been trying to find the person behind the scenes. Damn it, it's a misunderstanding, my two benefactors. The unscrupulous monk shouted and jumped up and down, trying his best to resist. Lu Ming moved and pounced on the jade plate. Buzz. All of a sudden, the jade plate trembled and emitted a terrifying pressure. Lu Ming felt as if he was going against the entire heaven and earth. He was crushed by the terrifying pressure and spat out a mouthful of blood as his body fell. Wung wung wung. The jade plate trembled slightly and emitted a supreme light. Countless inscriptions appeared in the hall and formed terrifying chain-like things that danced in the hall. The unscrupulous monk, Yang Patian, and Tuo Bashir couldn't help but stop and look around in shock. They were also shocked by the sudden change. What's going on? At this moment, a group of people rushed in. It was Fairy Tanxiang, Kong Xian, and the others. Among them were the divine emperors. The people behind had already arrived. When they saw the scene, they were shocked. Who? A black vortex suddenly appeared on the ground, erupting with a terrifying suction and devouring power. Not good, save me. A few of the weaker ones screamed as they were swallowed by the vortex and disappeared. Not good. Lu Ming and the rest soared into the sky, but it was unusually strenuous. The devouring power was too strong, and it was trying to pull them down. Save me. A sharp cry rang out. Een Bupo transformed into his true form, a giant eagle. He flapped his wings desperately, wanting to resist, but he still couldn't resist and was pulled down. He roared and disappeared. At the same time, Kong Xian's figure was also swallowed. A Silavira light shone from between Fairy Tanxiang's brows, and medicinal pills flew out, forming a pair of wings to support her. However, she was still quickly sinking. Charge out! Lu Ming roared and flew toward Fairy Sandalwood. He grabbed her slender waist and wanted to bring her out of the hall. However, he could not. The devouring power was too terrifying, and he could not pull her. Brother Lu, don't worry about me. You can escape on your own. Fairy Tanxiang pushed Lu Ming, and his body fell into the vortex. At this time, Yang Patian and the others tried their best to rush out of the hall, but it was useless. The devouring power was too strong, and they couldn't get out at all. It was the same for Lu Ming. His body was sinking. No. Lu Ming saw a few fourth-level spiritual god realm experts being devoured, including the Divine Emperor and others. In the end, only Lu Ming, Yang Patian, the unscrupulous monk, and Tuo Bashir were still resisting with all their might. Buzz. All of a sudden, the devouring power increased sharply and multiplied several times. Lu Ming and the other three were devoured and rushed into the vortex. The world seemed to spin as if he had rushed into eternal darkness. Lu Ming felt his vision turn black and he could not remember anything. Chapter 1087. 1087. A Big Dream, The Woman in the Dream. Lu Ming felt that he was drifting in the eternal darkness. He did not know where he was drifting to. Slowly, his mind became more and more confused as if his memories were fading. Everything that had happened in the past seemed to have become blurry and slowly dissipated. Slowly, Lu Ming became ignorant. After an unknown period of time, Lu Ming suddenly sat up. With a creak, he found that he was sitting on a bed. Where is this place? What's wrong with me? I felt like I had a very long dream just now. Lu Ming looked at his surroundings in confusion. At this moment, the door opened and a beautiful young lady walked in. She was 14 to 15 years old and was very beautiful. When she saw that Lu Ming had woken up, she immediately smiled happily and cheered. "Brother Ming, you're finally awake. You really scared me." Yao Looking at Lu Yao's worried expression, Lu Ming's heart felt warm. He then asked, "Yao, what happened to me? I remember I went to awaken my bloodline 3 days ago. What happened after that?" "Brother Ming, you went to awaken your bloodline 3 days ago. During the process, you suddenly fainted. You have been in a coma for 3 days. In these 3 days, you have been having nightmares and calling strange names like D. Brother Ming, are you okay?" Lu Yao was a little worried. "I'm fine. It's just a nightmare." Lu Ming smiled faintly. He really had a dream, a very, very long dream. But for some reason, the dream in his mind was getting more and more blurry, and he almost couldn't remember it. He only had a vague feeling that in that dream, Lu Yao left him, and he later obtained a treasure, cultivated into a strong man, and went on an adventure on the continent. He only had a vague impression of it, but the more he thought about it, the more blurry and ethereal the dream became. What a strange dream. Lu Ming smiled. He, Lu Ming, was just a useless young master in Fiery Wind City who could not cultivate. Why would he have such a strange dream? "Yao, did I fail in my bloodline awakening?" Lu Ming asked. "Brother Ming." Lu Yao wanted to say something but stopped. "Tell me I'm fine." Lu Ming smiled. "Brother Ming, it's a failure, but it's fine. Even if you can't cultivate, you won't change in Yao-er's heart. My father and your mother have already discussed it. We'll hold our wedding in half a month." Lu Yao blinked his eyes and said. After he finished, he was a little shy and his face was a little red. "The wedding will be held in half a month?" Lu Ming was slightly stunned. At that moment, he did not know why, but he felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. A figure appeared in his mind. The figure was very blurry, and he could not see its face clearly. It was someone he had met in his dream. It was a woman. A sense of reluctance surged in Lu Ming's heart. This figure seemed to be very important to him. She. Who was it? Why do I feel my heart ache? Was it really a dream? Lu Ming was stunned and mumbled to himself. "Brother Ming, what happened? Don't scare Yao." Lu Yao called out. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He came to his senses and smiled. "I'm fine. I'm just thinking about that dream again." "Brother Ming, it's just a dream. Don't think too much and drink your medicine." Lu Yao picked up the medicine at the side and fed it to Lu Ming. At this moment, 2 people walked into the room. One was a beautiful woman, and the other was a beautiful teenage girl. "Mother, Qiuyue," Lu Ming called out. "Ming, have a good rest. You're going to be the groom in half a month." Li Ping smiled slightly and revealed a doting expression. "That's right, young master. Qiuyue wants to congratulate you." The young girl at the side said in a sweet voice. "Qiuyue." Lu Ming looked at Qiuyue. In the dream, Qiuyue seemed to have become a martial arts genius, but it was only a seemingly feeling. Lu Ming felt that the dream had become more muddled and was slowly fading away as time passed. "Ming, you've just woken up, so you should rest well. Don't let your thoughts run wild," Li Ping said. Then, she left the room with Qiuyue and Lu Yao. "That dream. That's strange. Who is that figure?" In the room, Lu Ming was lying on the bed in a daze. Time passed very quickly. As the days went by, Lu Ming's body recovered quickly. The dream in his mind was also becoming more and more blurry. As time passed, it became more and more blurry. He believed that he would completely forget it very soon. But for some reason, every time he thought of that dream, a figure would appear, causing Lu Ming's heart to ache. Who was that figure? Why does it feel so real? Lu Ming muttered. It was a woman's figure, which was hard to erase from his mind. In the Lu clan's backyard, a small stream flowed by. There was a pavilion beside the small stream, and in the pavilion, a young man and a young woman were snuggling up to each other. Brother Ming, Yao is going to marry you tomorrow. I'll never be separated from you again. Lu Yao said in a low voice, his eyes showing anticipation and shyness. Lu Ming hugged Lu Yao, feeling extremely relaxed. The gentle breeze on his Buddha's face revealed a faint floral fragrance. This way, that's good. Lu Ming looked at the sky and thought of this. If he couldn't cultivate, then so be it. If he could live an ordinary life, wouldn't that be good? Lu Ming really enjoyed such a life. That dream was a dream after all. Let it drift away with the wind. Only that figure could not be erased. It would occasionally appear in Lu Ming's mind. Lu Ming, wake up. Suddenly, Lu Ming heard a voice. Lu Ming was stunned. He turned to look around but did not see anyone. Lu Yao was still in his arms, as if he had not heard anything. What are you looking at? I'm here, in the stream. The voice rang out again. Lu Ming was shocked and quickly looked at the stream. He saw a little turtle floating in the stream, staring at him. You're talking to me? Lu Ming's eyes widened in disbelief. What are you looking at if it's not this seat? Who can it be? The little turtle berated. Brother Ming, what's wrong?
Who are you talking to?
Lu Yao looked at Lu Ming in surprise. Taking a deep breath to calm himself down, Lu Ming said, It's nothing. You heard wrong. Yao, you can go back first. I'll go and welcome you tomorrow. And, okay. Yao will wait for you. Lu Yao blinked his eyes and jogged away. Immediately after, Lu Ming looked at the little turtle and was extremely surprised. A turtle can actually speak. Could it be the legendary king-class turtle? No. Senior. Junior Lu Ming greets Senior. Lu Ming bowed to the little turtle. In his memory, only the legendary king-level demonic beasts could speak. He was shocked to find a king-level demonic beast in the backyard of the Lu family. There might not even be a king-tier demonic beast in the entire Blazing Sun Empire. King-tier my ass. I'm the world turtle, the top of the top 10 war beasts. What king-tier? You're not even fit to carry my shoes. Kid Lu Ming, you've been hit by an illusion. You're in an illusion. Why don't you wake up? Do you want to sink into it for the rest of your life? The little turtle shouted. Chapter 1088. 1088 Saint Stage Saint. Illusion? An illusion? I remember everything that happened to me clearly. How could I be in an illusion? Senior must be joking. Lu Ming frowned. What a joke. You're Lu Ming. In the real world, your bloodline was deprived by Lu Yao. Fortunately, you got the help of the broken soul of the 9 sons, merged with the blood essence of the 9 dragons, and awakened the bloodline of the 9 dragons. That's how you rose to power. Have you forgotten? The little turtle called out.
What?
Yao stole my bloodline? Impossible? How is that possible? You're spouting nonsense. Lu Ming had a look of disbelief on his face. However, after hearing what the little turtle said, the dream that he had in the past, the dream that was getting fainter and fainter, actually appeared again. It seemed to have become clearer. Nonsense. You won first place in the Battle of Providence and became the top 1,000 of the list of top 1,000 talents in the Eastern Barren Territory. You're the Zongzi of the Talisman Amulet Sect. Now that the Talisman Amulet Sect is besieged by Martial Emperor De and is in danger, are you going to just leave it be? Lu Ming's body trembled slightly with every word the little turtle said. His eyes were filled with complicated emotions, and he was struggling. The Talisman Amulet Sect, the list of top 1,000 talents. Lu Ming mumbled to himself. He felt that the dream was becoming clearer and clearer, as if it was about to surface. What's his name? I think I had a dream before, and I also had a little turtle. Lu Ming's eyes were even more confused. As the dream slowly emerged, he was in the intersection of the dream and reality. He could not tell which was real and which was fake. Perhaps everything was just a dream.
I...
The little turtle's eyes went wide, and he finally cried out, It's fucking called Dandan, and you named it, you bastard. It's so fucking unpleasant to hear. Dandan. Lu Ming muttered to himself, and seemed to have thought of something. Also, are you not going to care about your little lover and wife, Xian Yinqing? She was captured by her father, and her life is uncertain now. You're giving up just like that? Dandan shouted.
Boom, boom, boom.
Xian Yinqing's name exploded in Lu Ming's mind like thunder. The figure that could not be erased, the figure that made one's heart ache at the thought of it, suddenly became clear and vivid in Lu Ming's mind. Following that, the dream became clear in Lu Ming's mind. Nianqing, right, I'm now in the secret realm of the Saint Mansion of the Tianxia Academy. This is an illusion. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up and emitted an endless glow. Real and fake, fake and real. Everything is an illusion. My heart won't move. Lu Ming suddenly shouted and threw a punch. Voila! The surrounding scene seemed to have been shattered by Lu Ming's punch. It began to peel away and finally disappeared completely. Lu Ming realized that he was standing in a long corridor. Dan was lying on his shoulder. What a powerful illusion! Lu Ming heaved a long sigh of relief. He was extremely shocked. That illusion was too powerful. It erased his true memories and made him fall into an eternal illusion, unable to extricate himself. This time, it was really dangerous. If it wasn't for the fact that he was in danger, he might really be trapped in the illusion forever. That would be equivalent to death. At the thought of this, Lu Ming could not help but feel a little scared. His back was drenched in cold sweat. Kid, this place is no small matter. An emperor would definitely not be able to do it. Be careful, I'm hiding. After saying that, Dandan automatically entered the mountain and river diagram. Lu Ming scanned his surroundings. He remembered that they had been swallowed by a vortex previously. However, he was the only one around. Yang Patian, Tuoba Shi, and goddess Tan Xiang were nowhere to be seen. This was a passageway that led straight ahead. Lu Ming pondered for a moment and walked forward. After walking through the passage, they came to a secret chamber. The secret chamber was huge. Above the secret chamber, Lu Ming saw a bead the size of a longan floating. The moment Lu Ming stepped into the secret chamber, the bead suddenly emitted a blinding light. In the light, a figure appeared. The figure sat cross-legged in the air, and the bead was right in the middle of the figure's eyebrows. The figure was not very burly, but the aura it exuded was earth-shattering. It gave Lu Ming the feeling that he was facing the heavenly Tao. The vast might of heaven filled the air. It was irresistible and irresistible. This was Lu Ming's intuitive feeling. When he faced this figure, it was as if he was facing the entire world. It was not that Lu Ming had not felt the majesty of an emperor. The pressure that an emperor emitted was simply child's play compared to this figure. It was as if the emperor was an ant in front of this figure.
Glug.
Lu Ming swallowed his saliva and raised his head with difficulty to look at the figure. Fortunately, the unparalleled aura was retracted as soon as it was released. The figure opened its eyes and looked at Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to be completely seen through. To actually be able to pass through the illusionary realm I set up, not bad. The figure said. Junior Lu Ming pays his respects to senior. Lu Ming bowed. He knew that the person in front of him was most likely the legendary existence above the emperor level in Tianxia Academy. He was shocked. It was said that the Saint Mansion's secret realm had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Could this person have lived for hundreds of thousands of years? This was really unimaginable. The figure seemed to have read Lu Ming's mind and said, "Little guy, don't think too much. I can't live that long. What you see is just the saint heart I left behind and a trace of my origin mark. The real me has been dead for many years." Saint heart. Lu Ming was puzzled. He had no idea what the saint heart was. Yes, it's normal that you don't understand. You're located in a remote area on a desolate island, so it's normal that you don't know. Above the Emperor Realm is the Saint Realm, also known as the Saint Realm, which condenses the Saint Heart, the elder said. The figure casually explained. Saint stage, saint. Lu Ming mumbled to himself. He finally knew what was the realm above the Emperor Realm. It was the saint, the saint. The figure in front of him must be a saint. Yes, you have great luck. Unfortunately, you are not an inscription master. I became a saint through the Tao of inscription when I was alive. Otherwise, I could pass on my legacy to you. The figure suddenly sighed. Inscriber, inheritance. Lu Ming's eyes were glowing. Although he was not an inscriber, his second body was. His second body had no other thoughts and focused on the Tao of inscriber. Now, he had advanced to an extremely profound realm. It would be great if he was here. Senior, did the others not pass the illusion? Lu Ming asked. No, they all failed, but I won't really make things difficult for them. I've already made them wake up. Look. The saint waved his hand, and images suddenly appeared in the air. He saw Yang Patian, Tuo Bashir, the unscrupulous monk, Kong Xian, and the others in their respective secret rooms, looking around. Fairy Tanxiang. Lu Ming noticed that Fairy Tanxiang was the most special. She was sitting cross-legged in a secret room, her entire body glowing, and the Asilavir mental energy fire between her brows was dancing. Chapter 1089. 1089. The Saint's Legacy. This little girl is very talented in the Tao of inscription. Unfortunately, she's still a little lacking. I'll give her some benefits and hope that she can gain something. The saint said. Lu Ming was happy for Fairy Tanxiang. Although this person had already passed away, he had been a saint when he was alive, an existence that had surpassed emperors. If he said that he had given them some benefits, it was definitely not a small matter. Even emperors would be envious. All right, little guy, since you can come here and pass my test, I won't let you return empty-handed. I'll give you some benefits and then send you out. With that, the saint waved his hand, and those images disappeared without a trace. Senior, wait a moment. This junior might be able to inherit senior's mantle. Lu Ming said hurriedly. You? Hee little fellow, don't talk nonsense. I see that you don't have any mental energy fire at all, so how can you inherit my legacy? The saint smiled indifferently. Has senior ever heard of the twin forbidden spell? Lu Ming said. Twin forbidden spell? The saint frowned slightly, looking confused. He had obviously never heard of it. Senior, the twin forbidden art is able to cultivate a second body. Lu Ming then told her about the twin forbidden technique and what he had learned. When the saint first heard that the twin forbidden technique could actually cultivate a clone that was the same as the original and could be cultivated wholeheartedly, he was extremely shocked. He had never heard of such a strange technique in the world. After hearing that Lu Ming had obtained it in the Battle of Providence, he was relieved. It wasn't strange for one to encounter any kind of fortuitous encounter in the Battle of Providence. This was because this saint had also participated in the Battle of Providence when he was young. There's actually such a secret technique in the world. According to what you've said, not only did your second body inherit your talent, but it also has no distracting thoughts. In this case, it's really suitable for my legacy. The saint sighed, his eyes bright. Back then, due to an accident, He was heavily injured and on the verge of death. He escaped to the divine wilderness continent and searched for this mystic realm. In order to hide from his enemies, he still died here in the end, leaving behind his saint heart and a trace of his mark. The mark was attached to the saint's heart, which was why it had been preserved for so many years, but it would disappear sooner or later. When a powerhouse was about to die, they did not wish for their lifetime of cultivation and achievements to go to waste. They all wanted to find a suitable successor to pass on their legacy. Lu Ming was undoubtedly the most suitable. But Senior, my second body is currently trapped in a place by an enemy. I'm afraid he won't be able to come for the time being. Lu Ming sighed. Oh, how about this? Take this formation plate. As long as you give it to your clone and have him activate the inscriptions on it, you'll be able to directly teleport here. The saint took out an array disc and handed it to Lu Ming. Lu Ming received it in joy and thanked the saint again. Yes, my name is Tianxian. You can call me the Tianxian saint. That's all.
I'll send you out now.
There's no need to open this secret realm in the future. I'll seal it forever and no one will be able to enter. The profound sky saint was about to send Lu Ming and the rest out. Senior, please wait. Lu Ming called out hurriedly. What? The profound sky saint was stunned. Allow me to change my appearance. Junior still has enemies outside. Lu Ming chuckled and his body transformed again. After a while, his body became thinner, and he turned into a young man with a pale face. Even his aura had changed greatly. No one could recognize him now. All right, I'm done. Lu Ming said. The profound sky saint waved his hand, and the space twisted. Lu Ming felt a force pulling him, and his body instantly disappeared. At this moment, Goddess Tanxiang, Yang Patian, and the others, as well as the people outside the Saint Mansion, were all enveloped by a force and disappeared. Tianxia Academy, outside the Wanxiang Jade Wall. The 9 beams of light suddenly disappeared without a trace, and the Myriad Elephant Jade Wall returned to its calm state. What's going on? The crowd was in an uproar, and even many supreme martial artists' faces changed. What's going on? Why did the 9 pillars of light suddenly disappear? Those who went in haven't come out yet. A supreme from a large force said, with an ugly expression. Many people looked at a supreme from the Tianxia Academy. I don't know either. Such a thing has never happened before. The Tianxia Academy's supreme martial artist said with a heavy expression. Then, can you open it again? A supreme martial artist asked. The supreme from the Tianxia Academy shook his head, which caused an uproar. There were many people from the major powers in there. For example, the strongest inheritors of the Floating Mountain sect and Devil Mountain were all in there. If they were to be trapped in there, it would be a huge loss. On the other hand, the people from the Heavenly Martial Sword School and Cold Blood Hall were gloating. This was because their successor had been killed by Lu Ming and had come out a long time ago. The most outstanding geniuses of the previous generation had also been killed. Even if the remaining people did not come out, they would not suffer as much as the other forces. At this moment, the space above the Myriad Elephant Jade Wall twisted, and several figures emerged. They're out, they're out. Many people were ecstatic. In the sky, more than 10,000 people appeared. Everyone saw Yang Patian, Goddess Tanxiang, Kong Xian, and the other heaven's favorites. What's going on? How's the Holy Prefecture? One by one, the supreme martial artists spoke out with excitement in their eyes. They had heard about the Saint Mansion from Wu Qinkong when he was killed. They were all shocked, but they were also looking forward to it. They wanted to rush in them slaviers. An existence that surpassed an emperor wasn't just for show. It was simply too alluring, especially for many supreme beings. They were stuck at the supreme being realm and had never been able to break through to the emperor realm. If they could obtain the inheritance or comprehension of an existence that had surpassed the emperor realm, they might be able to break through. In a flash, Goddess Tanxiang, Kong Xian, Junyu, and the others flew to their respective supremes and explained the situation of entering the Saint Mansion. What? You've all failed. When they heard that Kong Xian and the other Heaven's Pride experts didn't pass the test, everyone sighed and felt very regretful. But then, they turned their eyes to Yang Patian, Tuo Bashir, and the unscrupulous monk. These people had surpassed the second-grade Heaven's Pride and were Heaven's Pride experts of the big shots. Perhaps they had succeeded. My hair is white, my Buddha is merciful, this little monk is ashamed, my heart is not strong, I still need to train. The heartless monk had a solemn look on his face as he chanted the name of Buddha, his face filled with compassion. In the crowd, Lu Ming looked down on him. If he had not seen the monk's true face, he would have thought that this fellow was a respectable senior monk. The unscrupulous monk's words meant that he had also failed. Damn it, that illusionary realm was indeed powerful. Even I couldn't pass it. Tuo Bashir grinned. We're on par. Tuo Bashir, let's fight another day. Yang Patian said coldly. Then, he strode out of the Tianxia Academy and disappeared in a flash. No one stopped him. Not only was Yang Patian a peerless genius, but he also came from the heaven-suppressing divine army. The heaven-suppressing divine army was too powerful. It was the only force that could compete with the ancient Saint dynasty among the 18 overlords of the central continent. It was even more powerful than the heavenly martial sword faction. Chapter 1090. 1090, heading to Central Continent's holy city. Yang Potion's words were clear. He had also failed. It seemed that no one had succeeded this time. No, there was still one more person. The crowd suddenly thought of something. Where was Lu Shaoqing, the young genius who killed the master of Bloodnet and the experts from Cold Blood Hall, Wu Tsong, Xue Feng, and the other fourth-level spiritual god realm experts, and Wu Qingkong? Why isn't he here? Where's Lu Shaoqing? The Supreme of Cold Blood Hall and the Heavenly Martial Sword School scanned the surroundings with sharp eyes. They spread out their spiritual consciousness in search of Lu Ming. Supreme martial artist Lu Shaoqing is an expert in disguise. He can even change his aura. He must be in the crowd. Xue Luo Zi shouted. He had fought with Lu Shaoqing in the city of Dan, so he was very familiar with Lu Shaoqing's appearance and aura. However, Lu Shaoqing's appearance and aura in the secret realm of the Saint Mansion were completely different. If he had not recognized Lu Ming's devouring power, he would not have recognized Lu Ming. Therefore, he knew that Lu Ming was definitely skilled in the art of disguise. You think I can't find you in a crowd? I'll check them one by one. The supreme martial artist of the Heavenly Martial Sword faction released a terrifying aura. His spiritual sense was like a storm, enveloping Lu Ming and the others who had entered the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. Many people's faces changed. Lu Ming's expression changed slightly before returning to normal. Check them one by one. How are you going to check? A supreme martial artist from another power said unhappily. I'll search their souls one by one. The Supreme of Blood Luo sect sneered. Haha, soul search? Who do you think you are? How can my floating mountain sect's disciples let you search their souls? The supreme martial artist of the floating mountain sect laughed. His voice was ice cold. That's right. Who do you think you are? How can I let you search the soul of a disciple of the Sky Eagle Castle? If you want to capture Lu Shaoqing, you have to think of a way. The supreme being of the Sky Eagle Castle sneered. Some of the supreme beings from the Overlord forces looked coldly at the supreme being from Cold Blood Hall and the supreme being from the Heavenly Martial Sword School. As they were all Overlord forces, they were not afraid of the two. The Heavenly Martial Sword faction and Cold Blood Hall had suffered heavy losses because of Lu Shaoqing, and now they wanted to search their disciples' souls. Wasn't that ridiculous? The supreme beings of Cold Blood Hall and Heavenly Sword School looked terrible. The disciples of the Overlord forces can leave, but the other forces and itinerant cultivators have to stay. We'll search their souls. The supreme martial artist from the heavenly martial sword faction muttered to himself for a moment before speaking. What? You want to search our souls? No, don't be too overbearing. I won't agree to it. This is the Tianxia Academy, not the Tianwu Sword School or Cold Blood Hall. Immediately, the people from the small forces started to shout. Everyone had their own secrets. How could they let others search their souls? Shut up. The supreme martial artist of the heavenly martial sword faction shouted as a vast sword power bloomed out, causing many people to be unable to breathe. Overlord forces were tyrannical. Other than forces of the same level, other forces were like ants in their eyes. In fact, this was the case. Once an emperor appeared, no one could compete with him. Hoo-hoo. At this moment, clouds gathered in the sky. The endless clouds gathered to form a huge face, and an endless imperial pressure spread out. The emperor has appeared. Someone shouted, and many people's faces changed. Greetings, Your Majesty. Everyone in the Tianxia Academy, be it ordinary disciples or supreme martial artists, bowed respectfully. This was because he was the emperor of the Tianxia Academy. The other people also saluted in a hurry. This was a sign of respect for the emperor. Let them go. Since they are in the Tianxia Academy must ensure everyone's safety. The emperor spoke indifferently, but his words were unquestionable. But the supreme martial artist from the heavenly martial sword faction wanted to say something. No need to say more, go. The king interrupted him. The supreme beings of the heavenly martial sword school and Cold Blood Hall nodded. They had to respect the king's request and finally agreed helplessly. Let's go. The supreme martial artist from the Sky Martial Sword faction glanced at the people from the small forces and the rogue cultivators, then left with the people from the Sky Martial Sword faction. The supreme of Cold Blood Hall also left with his people. After that, the people from the other overlord forces also left. With a whoosh, the giant face in the sky disappeared without a trace. The emperor's aura also disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. However, the people from the small forces did not leave. They planned to take the teleportation formation of the Tianxia Academy to leave because the Tianwu Sword Sect and Cold Blood Hall might intercept them outside the Tianxia Academy. It was too dangerous to go out like this. The safest way was to leave through the teleportation array. The Tianxia Academy had no reason to refuse, because taking the teleportation array would cost them a large amount of spiritual crystals and raw stones. They could make a lot of money. Lu Ming was also in the crowd. He also planned to take the teleportation array and leave the Tianxia Academy. In the air, Kong Xian and Goddess Tan Xiang glanced around, presumably looking for Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming had no intention of showing himself. He found a random mountain peak and sat cross-legged, quietly cultivating. There were too many people now, and they would definitely have to line up at the teleportation array. It would be better to set off in a few days. After the three of them left, Lu Ming made his move. After paying a sum of raw gemstones, Lu Ming stepped into the teleportation array. Sacred City, I'm here. Little Qing, how are you now? Lu Ming's heart stirred. His destination was the sacred city of the Central Continent, the imperial capital of the ancient Saint Dynasty, the largest city in the world. The teleportation array flashed and Lu Ming's figure disappeared. The Central Continent's sacred city was the largest city in the divine wilderness. It was the imperial capital of the ancient sacred dynasty. In the 8 directions of the sacred city, there were 8 satellite cities that surrounded and protected the sacred city. These 8 satellite cities all had teleportation formations. If outsiders wanted to enter the holy city, they could only teleport to the satellite city first, then fly to the holy city. On this day, the teleportation array of a satellite city in the east flashed and Lu Ming appeared. Lu Ming did not stay in the satellite city. He left the satellite city and soared into the sky, flying towards the sacred city. The distance between the satellite city and the holy city was at least 10 million miles. However, Lu Ming's current speed was terrifying. He crossed the distance in no time, and a huge city appeared in front of him. The first impression Lu Ming had of the holy city was that it was ancient, weathered, and full of the traces of time. The huge city wall was covered with sword marks, which seemed to describe the ancient history of the sacred city. The central continent's sacred city was huge and grand. However, among all the big cities in the divine wilderness continent, it was definitely not the largest, nor was it considered the top. At the very least, the Nine Dragons city of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace was much bigger than the sacred city. However, the sacred city was still the #1 city in the world. The holy city had existed for far too long and had left behind countless legends. There were also countless secrets within. Moreover, there were many entrances to secret realms in the holy city. In fact, those secret realms could be considered a part of the holy city. With those secret realms, the holy city's scope was terrifyingly large. No one knew how many powerful cultivators were hidden in those secret realms, or how many secrets they contained. Therefore, although the ancient Saint dynasty of the central continent had declined, it was still the most powerful force in the central continent. No one dared to underestimate it. Chapter 1091. 1091 Chapter 1091 Changing Identity. Lu Ming flew toward the holy city and landed on a pipe. He followed the crowd and walked into the city gate. There were soldiers standing guard at the city gates. Lu Ming swept his gaze across them and realized that these soldiers were all spirit embryo realm experts. After a brief check, Lu Ming entered the holy city. At once, he was greeted with an ancient and simple aura. In the sacred city, any street, palace, or house was filled with the aura of time, as if they had crossed time and space from millions of years ago. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth is so rich. It even contains origin qi. Also, I can clearly sense the essence realm of heaven and earth. The entire sacred city is like a large array that continuously gathers the spiritual qi and origin qi of heaven and earth. Lu Ming secretly sighed. If he cultivated here, his cultivation speed would definitely be very fast. The holy city was divided into the outer city, the inner city, and the core of the palace. Ordinary martial artists, small forces, and itinerant cultivators all lived in the outer city. The inner city was occupied by some of the powerful forces in the sacred city, such as the mansions of the nobles and ministers of the ancient Saint dynasty. Of course, the other overlords of the central continent had branches in the sacred city, and people were stationed there all year round. As for the royal palace, it was where the core members of the Xie clan of the ancient Saint dynasty lived. Lu Ming strolled around casually. He was in the outer city now. He was thinking about how to sneak into the palace and find out about Xian Yinqing. After strolling around for a while, Lu Ming walked towards a restaurant. A restaurant was the best place to gather information. After ordering a few dishes and wine, Lu Ming sat down at a table. In another 2 months, the million-year national sacrifice of the ancient Saint dynasty will be here. At that time, the sacred city will be lively again. That's for sure. This is the million-year national sacrifice. How important is it? At that time, not only the overlord forces of Central Continent, but other forces of all sizes will gather in the sacred city. Even forces from Western Desert, Northern Plains, Southern Nether, and Eastern Barren will send people over. That's really lively. It's a rare sight. At that time, all the heavens favorites from all over the world will gather. This is a rare occasion. That's most likely the case. This generation is really full of experts. When the heavens' favorites gather, there will inevitably be conflicts. Haha. Lu Ming had just sat down when he heard some important news. A million-year national sacrifice. Lu Ming's gaze flickered. The Xie family of the ancient sacred dynasty had been established for 1,000,000 years. It was truly shocking. In the entire divine wilderness, Which faction could have such a long history? It was too shocking. Even though the ancient Saint dynasty was on the decline, and the various emperors had their own territories, they still had to give the ancient Saint dynasty some respect in name. They still had to listen to the ancient Saint dynasty's orders. Of course, this was only a name. Therefore, even if it was just for show, those powers still had to come to the million-year national sacrifice of the ancient Saint dynasty. At that time, the emperors of some overlord forces might descend. I'm really looking forward to it. When the time comes, the winds and clouds will definitely gather, and experts will be as numerous as clouds. I heard that the Imperial Palace has already issued an order to expand the Imperial Dragon Guards to maintain order in the Holy City and protect the Imperial Palace. There's such a thing? When do you want to start recruiting? I want to try. It has already started today. We've been recruiting for the past half a month, so we can give it a try. However, the Imperial Dragon Guard's recruitment requirements are very high. Without a cultivation of the spirit embryo realm, it's impossible to enter. Lu Ming continued to listen, and indeed, he heard a lot of news. The Imperial Dragon Guards? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The Imperial Dragon Guards were the Imperial Guards of the ancient Saint dynasty. They were responsible for guarding the palace and protecting the safety of the royal family. Didn't he want to sneak into the palace? Wouldn't it be fine if he joined the Imperial Dragon Guards? However, the Imperial Dragon Guard was to guard the palace and protect the royal family. Their identities had to be thoroughly investigated before they could join. Otherwise, if anyone could join, then wouldn't the safety of the royal family be at risk? Lu Ming's gaze shifted. He picked up his wine glass and walked towards a table at the side. 2 big brothers, please. I heard you say that you wanted to join the Imperial Dragon Guards, right? Lu Ming raised his glass and smiled. At this table, there were 2 burly men. One looked to be in his 40s, and the other looked to be in his 30s, with a full beard. That's right. What can I do for you, little brother? The strong man with a full beard looked at Lu Ming and asked. This little brother comes from a small force and has just entered the Holy City. I want to find a job and join the Imperial Dragon Guards. I heard the 2 of you talking about this matter just now. Perhaps we can work together in the future, so I wanted to make friends with you. Lu Ming said with a smile. Upon hearing Lu Ming's words, their expressions relaxed and they smiled. He's the one who wants to join, so I won't go. However, little brother, the conditions to join the Imperial Dragon Guards aren't low. You need to be at the spirit embryo realm. The 40-odd tough man laughed. That's just as well. This little brother has just broken through to the spirit embryo realm. It's just in time to give it a try. With that, Lu Ming's body emitted a faint aura. It was the aura of the first-level spirit embryo realm. Not only could the illusionary breath technique change one's aura, but it could also hide one's cultivation. Now, Lu Ming was hiding his cultivation to the first level of the spirit embryo realm. When they realized that Lu Ming's cultivation was only at the first-level spirit embryo realm, the 2 of them were even more relieved. The burly man with a full beard said, Little brother, you're so young, yet you're able to reach the first level of spirit embryo realm. You can be considered a heaven's favorite. I'm impressed. You're overpraising me, big brothers. Come, let's drink to our heart's content. Lu Ming said generously. How can I accept this? The man in his 40s laughed. This was the Holy City. The food and wine in any restaurant were not cheap. Since Lu Ming was treating them, the 2 of them had a better impression of him. The 3 of them continued drinking. Lu Ming was new to the Holy City and did not know much about it. He asked the 2 of them for advice, and they told him everything they knew. Lu Ming learned that the 2 of them came from a small force outside the Holy City called the Black Spear Sect. They were not far from the Holy City and often came to the Holy City to purchase items. The man in his 40s was called Ma Wu, and the man in his 30s with a full beard was called Ming Lu. Ming Lu, what a coincidence, my name is read backwards. Isn't that Ming Lu? Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. The 3 of them chatted and drank. After 3 rounds of drinking, Ma Wu and Ming Lu drank to their heart's content. Junior brother Ming Lu, since you want to join the Imperial Dragon Guard, then stay here and sign up with little brother Lu. I'll return to the sect first and tell you about your matter. If you work in the Imperial Dragon Guard, it'll be much more convenient for our Black Spear sect in the future. Ma Wu said. All right, senior brother Ma, you can go back first. I'll go and register tomorrow. Ming Lu nodded. After that, Ma Wu bade farewell and left. Lu Ming and Ming Lu found an inn nearby to stay in and planned to register the next day. Very soon, night fell. Lu Ming concealed his aura and entered Ming Lu's room without a sound.
Who?
Ming Lu had just opened his mouth when Lu Ming struck out with his palm and knocked Ming Lu out. Then, he kept Ming Lu into the mountain and river diagram and let Dan inscribe an array, trapping him on the ground. I'm sorry, I'll borrow your identity for a while. I'll definitely compensate you in the future. Lu Ming muttered. His muscles and bones began to wriggle, transforming into Ming Lu's appearance. Then, his aura changed as well, becoming very similar to Ming Lu's. I'm still missing a beard. Lu Ming smiled and left the inn. He bought a fake beard and stuck it on his face. Instantly, he looked exactly like Ming Lu. Even if Ma Wu was by his side, he would not be able to recognize that Lu Ming was a fake. Lu Ming had used Ming Lu's identity to sneak into the Imperial Dragon Guards, waiting for an opportunity to find out Xian Yanqing's whereabouts. As for Ming Lu, he could only temporarily stay in the mountain and river diagram. Chapter 1092. 1092 Joining the Imperial Dragon Guard. The next morning, Lu Ming headed for the registration area for the Imperial Dragon Guards. When he arrived, he was shocked to see that there was already a long line at the registration area. To some of the smaller powers, the Imperial Dragon Guards was a good job. Joining the Imperial Dragon Guards was equivalent to joining the ancient Saint Dynasty, and they would be able to obtain more cultivation resources. Those below the Spirit Embryo Realm, hurry up and leave. We don't need those below the Spirit Embryo Realm. At the registration area, there were a few burly men dressed in long purple robes embroidered with flood dragons. These were the Imperial Dragon Guards. Their auras were very strong. Lu Ming swept his gaze across them and realized that they were all at the 7th level Spirit Embryo Realm or above. There was also an old man sitting at the side, resting with his eyes closed. He was also wearing the clothes of the Imperial Dragon Guards, but his aura was unfathomable. Of course, it could not hide from Lu Ming's senses. Lu Ming discovered that this person was in existence at the 1st level of the Spiritual God Realm. Only those at the Spirit Embryo Realm and above can join. The requirements are too high. Let's go. Some people sighed, shook their heads, and walked away. Take out your identification and report your information. We will go and verify it. After that, there will be a test. Because there is a limit to the number of Imperial Dragon Guards that can be recruited this time, there are too many people who have registered. We can't take in all of them. Only the strong can stay. All right, the registration begins now. A burly man said. Then they started to register one by one. Lu Ming waited patiently for a full 2 hours before it was his turn. Lu Ming moved his hand, and an identity token appeared. He handed it to one of the Imperial Dragon Guards. This identity token was taken from Ming Lu. It was the identity token of the Black Spear Sect's disciple. Black Spear Sect, clear path. Lu Ming said. The burly Imperial Dragon Guard checked his identity medallion and registered it. We'll send people to verify your identity. If there's any falsehood in it, you'll be killed on the spot. Do you understand? The brawny Imperial Dragon Guard's eyes were cold. Yes, I know. Lu Ming nodded continuously. Yes, wait over there. There will be an assessment later. The brawny Imperial Dragon Guard said. Lu Ming walked to the side and waited patiently. After another 2 hours, the registration ended. There were more than 2,000 people who had signed up. All right, come with me. At this moment, the spiritual god realm elder stood up and said indifferently. He then strode inside with Lu Ming and the rest following behind. Soon, they arrived at a military camp. There was a huge stone tablet in the middle of the camp. This stone tablet can test your cultivation. You just have to channel your true qi into the stone tablet, and we will know your cultivation. There are 2,000 people who have registered this time, but we only want 200 people. Therefore, we will only accept those whose cultivation ranks are in the top 200. Now, the assessment begins. The old man announced. After that, the applicants went up to take the test one by one. As long as one put their true essence into the stone tablet would light up. Through the light, one could tell their cultivation level. He started testing them one by one. Lu Ming realized that many of them had a cultivation of the first-level spirit embryo realm. There were a lot fewer second-level spirit embryo realm cultivators, and even fewer third-level spirit embryo realm cultivators. Very soon, it was Lu Ming's turn. Just in case, I'd better input a little more true qi. Lu Ming thought to himself. He was only taking in 200 people. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, Lu Ming planned to input more essential core. He walked to the stone tablet and pressed his hand on it. Lu Ming channeled his essential core. Buzz. The stone tablet shook, and 7 Asilavira lights flashed. Enough. Lu Ming kept his essential core. 7 Asilavira rays of light represented the cultivation of the 7th level of the spirit embryo realm. This way, it should be foolproof and he would definitely be accepted. 7th level spirit embryo realm. The spiritual god realm elder's eyes lit up. Those who came to sign up were usually people from small forces, and their cultivation levels were not too high. Those who had too high a cultivation level would not join the Imperial Dragon Guards, and there were not many who had reached the 7th level of the spiritual embryo realm. Not bad. The spiritual god realm elder nodded. The test continued. Not long after, the test was completed. Lu Ming discovered that there were only 3 people who had reached the 7th level spirit embryo realm, and only 1 person who had reached the 8th level. There was no one who could go higher. This made Lu Ming touch his nose. Was his performance too outstanding? All right, the test is over. The top 200 will stay in the military camp for the time being and wait for our news in a few days. The spirit god elder ordered. Those who were not in the top 200 could only sigh and leave. Lu Ming and the group were led to their rooms. For the next few days, Lu Ming stayed in the military camp. He cultivated while waiting for news. 3 days later, the news came that Lu Ming had been recruited and had officially become a member of the Imperial Dragon Guards. The 4 of you are very good. I have temporarily arranged the positions of deputy flag for you. If you perform well in the future, it will not be a problem for you to be promoted. Also, the positions you need to guard have been arranged. Someone will inform you in a moment. After the spirit god elder finished his announcement, he gave each of them a token that represented the secondary flag. The flag in the Imperial Dragon Guard meant an official position. One banner had 500 people. The main banner could command 500 Imperial Dragon Guards, and the deputy banner was not small either. This was because their cultivation was profound. No matter where they were, strength was everything. Not long after, someone sent Lu Ming the Imperial Dragon Guard's robe and the news that they would be guarding the position. The 4 of them were naturally separated. The 8th Prince's Guards. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. His temporary duty was to be the 8th Prince's Guard. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with a strange look. From what he knew, the 8th Prince was Xiezhen. Wasn't Xiezhen the one who took Xie Nianqing away from 9 dragons? What a coincidence. I just happened to ask Xiezhen about little Qing. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. There were 200 people who had joined them, but there were more than 30 people who were grouped with Lu Ming. They were all the 8th Prince's Guards. Soon after, a skinny man in his 40s came to Lu Ming and the rest. "I am your commander. My name is Shifang. From now on, you will follow me. Now, follow me to the 8th prince's mansion." The scrawny man swept his gaze across them, especially Lu Ming, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. "This Shifang seems to be hostile to me, but this is the first time I've seen him. Strange." Lu Ming frowned slightly and thought to himself. The 8th prince's mansion was in the inner city. It was very wide, like a villa, and it was 100 miles wide. These Imperial Dragon Guards couldn't directly enter the 8th prince's residence, so they stayed in a military camp outside the residence. In the military camp outside the 8th prince's residence, Lu Ming and the others gathered. Shifang stood on the platform and looked down on everyone with a cold expression. "I'll tell you some things right now. The first and foremost order of the Imperial Dragon Guard is to obey orders and protect the safety of the Imperial family with your lives. Also, let me tell you, the Imperial Dragon Guard is full of experts. Don't be so proud of your strength. There are many more in the Imperial Dragon Guard who are stronger than you. Any one of them can easily suppress you. Do you understand?" After saying that, Shifang's gaze swept across Lu Ming. Chapter 1093. 1093 Chapter 1093 Collecting Fees. Lu Ming frowned. He had a feeling that Shifang's words were directed at him. However, he had never met Shifang before. Why was he targeting him? Could it be that this Ming Lu had offended Shifang before? Lu Ming thought to himself. After Shifang finished speaking, he turned around and left. Then, someone arranged their accommodation. Lu Ming was the deputy flag bearer, and he had a small courtyard. There was another person who lived in Lu Ming's courtyard and helped him. This person was also a newly joined Imperial Dragon Guard. He looked to be in his 50s and was quite shrewd. His name was Sun Lin. "Lord Vice Commander, you have to be careful," Sun Lin reminded them as they arrived at the courtyard.
"Oh? What do you mean by that?"
Lu Ming asked. "Deputy Commander, you should be able to feel that General Shi's words are actually meant for you," Sun Lin said. "Oh? Do you know why?" Lu Ming asked. He was also very curious. "Vice Banner Lord has just arrived, so you probably don't know the rules of the Imperial Dragon Guard. In the Imperial Dragon Guard, everything is decided by strength. Those who are strong, as long as they make a contribution, can be promoted. Deputy Sir, your cultivation is at the 7th level Spirit Embryo Realm, while General Shifang's cultivation is only at the 6th level Spirit Embryo Realm. Your cultivation is higher than his." Upon hearing this, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. "You mean, Shifang is worried that I will threaten his position?" Vice Commander is wise. The reason why Shifang was able to get the position of the Chief Commander was because he had an elder brother who was the personal bodyguard of His Highness, the 8th Prince. That's why he was able to get the position of the Chief Commander and command 500 Imperial Dragon Guards. Moreover, the highest person in this banner was only at the 6th level of the Spirit Embryo Realm, so Shifang was able to hold the position of the Chief Commander very steadily. However, Vice Commander's cultivation is higher than his. As long as Vice Commander makes some contributions, it would be very normal for him to surpass Shifang and even replace him. Of course, Shifang won't be nice to you. He might even do something to you in secret. Sun Lin explained. Lu Ming smiled. So that was the case. However, he didn't take it to heart. Shifang was just a mere Shifang. He could suppress him with one finger. There was no need to take it to heart. After chatting for a while, Lu Ming walked into the room and sat down cross-legged to begin comprehending the essence realm of heaven and earth. Previously, in the secret realm of the Saint Mansion, Lu Ming had devoured many intent runes of powerful cultivators. Not only had he achieved a breakthrough in his cultivation, but he had also made progress in the intent of heaven and earth. His thunder mentality and wind mentality had broken through to the 4th level lower tier respectively. With the addition of his fire mentality, 3 of his mentalities had already reached the 4th level lower tier. Now he was fully focused on comprehending the earth mentality and the water mentality. There was nothing much for the first 2 days. The Imperial Dragon Guards were usually very free when they had nothing to do. After all, they were all martial artists. They didn't need to patrol like ordinary people. When they had nothing to do, they just needed to cultivate in peace. They would only be dispatched when there was an emergency. On the evening of the 3rd day, Lu Ming heard some movements outside. He ended his cultivation, opened the door, and walked out. In the courtyard, there were 2 people. One was Sun Lin, and the other was a skinny middle-aged man. At this moment, Sun Lin took out a storage ring and handed it to the skinny middle-aged man. The skinny monkey-like middle-aged man took the storage ring. When he saw Lu Ming, he chuckled and walked over to him. "You're Ming Lu?" "Not bad," Lu Ming said. "I was just about to look for you. Since you have joined the Imperial Dragon Guard, General Shifang will take care of you in the future, allowing you to reap the greatest benefits and lead a good life. However, General Shifang can't work for free. You have to show some appreciation, understand?" The skinny monkey-like middle-aged man stretched out his hand and pinched his fingers. He then chuckled. The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled up. He understood now. It turned out that this skinny monkey was sent by Shifang to collect benefits. Needless to say, every new member would be patronized. He was really greedy. "Tell me, how much do you want?" Lu Ming said. "You're the deputy. You have a higher position, so of course you have to pay more. The others are worth 50,000 raw stones, so you can just give them 200,000. Skinny monkey chuckled. 50,000? 200,000? The smile at the corners of Lu Ming's mouth grew wider. That was really ruthless. An average person would need 50,000 origin stones. To an ordinary spirit embryo realm martial artist, this was definitely a huge burden. And to him, he asked for 200,000. This was 200,000 raw gemstones. It was not a small amount, and it was difficult for a normal spirit embryo realm to take it out. It was a lion's mouth. "Unfortunately, I don't have that many raw gemstones. Please leave," Lu Ming said indifferently. "No? Don't try to fool me. You're a 7th level spirit embryo realm martial artist. Do you really think that you don't have 200,000 yuan in your entire fortune?" The skinny monkey-like, middle-aged man sneered. "Oh, even if I have 200,000 yuan, if I give it all to you, what will I use to cultivate?" Lu Ming said. "I don't care about this. It's your own business. If you can't take it out, you'd better get out of the Imperial Dragon Guard as soon as possible. Otherwise, without the protection of the chief commander, you won't even know how you died in the future." The skinny monkey-like, middle-aged man's face was gloomy as he threatened. Hee. Lu Ming was so angry that he laughed and said, "I need Shifang's protection." What a joke. "All right, get lost now, or I'll throw you out." "How dare you laugh at the chief commander? You're so bold. You're looking for death." The skinny monkey-like, middle-aged man shouted. "Get lost. You're courting death." Lu Ming bellowed and took a step forward. His terrifying aura exploded and pressed down on the skinny monkey-like middle-aged man. The skinny monkey-like middle-aged man trembled, as if he had been struck by lightning. He took a few steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Ming, just you wait, you're dead." The skinny monkey-like middle-aged man ran out with a face full of resentment. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared. "Vice Commander, if you offend him like this, I'm afraid Shifang will come later." Sigh. Sun Lin sighed, a little worried. "He's just a clown. What's there to be afraid of?" Lu Ming said casually. "Shifang is fine. However, his elder brother is the 8th prince's personal bodyguard, a 1st-level spiritual god realm expert," Sun Lin said, a hint of fear in his eyes. If a spiritual god realm master wanted to kill them, it would be no different from killing an ant. Oh, Lu Ming replied indifferently. He looked calm and sat down on a stone bench in the courtyard casually, as if nothing had happened. Sun Lin was full of worry. After a while, boom. The door to the courtyard was blasted open. Fang walked in with a few trusted aides, his face dark. Minglu, you injured the other Imperial Dragon Guards for no reason. I suspect you have ulterior motives. Why aren't you obediently kneeling down to accept your punishment? Fang shouted loudly, directly pinning a crime on Lu Ming. Lu Ming glanced at Fang indifferently and said, "What an idiot. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to get lost."
How dare you?
You dare to offend your superior, and your crime will be doubled. Your cultivation will be crippled, and you will be expelled from the Imperial Dragon Guards. Fang shouted. Hee, Fang. Why don't you try? Lu Ming smiled faintly. Chapter 1094. 1094. Get out of here. You still dare to resist. Fang said in a deep voice. He did not believe that Lu Ming would dare to resist. Fang's elder brother was a first-level spiritual god realm expert and the 8th prince's personal guard. If Lu Ming dared to lay a hand on him, he would be courting death. Moreover, he had learned a rather powerful martial arts technique from his brother. He was also quite talented. Even if Lu Ming's cultivation was 1 level higher than his, he was not afraid to fight him. Lu Ming did not answer Fang. Instead, he stood up and walked toward Fang. 3 breaths have passed. It seems like I have to do it myself and throw you out.
How dare you?
You really dare to attack me. Everyone, let's attack together and suppress this person.
Die.
Fang shouted angrily. His aura burst out, and he charged at Lu Ming. Besides Fang, the other 3 also made their moves. Their auras erupted, and they were actually all at the 6th level spirit embryo realm. These few people were the strongest in this banner, and they usually followed Fang's lead. The 4 of them joined forces, and their momentum was not weak. However, in Lu Ming's eyes, they were no different from children playing house.
Bang! Bang!
Lu Ming kicked. The moment this kick was kicked, it turned into 4-leg shadows. Bang! 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 All the attacks of Fang and the other 3 turned into bubbles under Lu Ming's feet. The soles of Lu Ming's feet were imprinted on their faces. With 4 screams, Fang and the other 3 were sent flying out of the yard like 4 cannonballs. Their screams echoed in the night sky, and then they flew further and further away. There was still the skinny monkey-like middle-aged man who hadn't left. At this moment, his eyes were almost popping out of their sockets. His entire body was trembling nonstop, and his face was pale. He was scared. He did not expect Lu Ming to be so bold that he even dared to hit Fang. Most importantly, he did not expect that Lu Ming not only dared to fight, but his combat strength was also so strong. He sent Fang and the other 3 flying with 1 kick. Although Lu Ming's cultivation was 1 level higher than Fang's group of 4, Fang's group had 4 people, yet they were unable to put up any resistance. It could be seen that Lu Ming's combat strength was stronger than an ordinary 7th level spirit embryo realm. At this moment, he looked at Lu Ming in fear. Get lost, Lu Ming berated. Yes, I'll get lost now. The skinny monkey-like middle-aged man turned around and was about to leave. I told you to get lost, not to leave, Lu Ming said coldly. The skinny monkey-like middle-aged man's face was pale. It seems like I have to do it myself. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. Don't. The skinny monkey-like middle-aged man was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He could only lie on the ground in humiliation and roll out of the courtyard. Then he got up and ran away. Vice Commander, I'm afraid he won't let you off the hook for offending Fang. Sun Lin was full of worry. He was not worried about Lu Ming. He was afraid that he would be implicated by Lu Ming. "What are you afraid of?" Lu Ming said casually, and went back to his room to cultivate. With a wave of his hand, many bottles, jade boxes, and iron boxes appeared in the room. There were more than 100 of them, all of which he had obtained from the Saint Mansion in the Secret Realm. Lu Ming did not check it previously. Now was the perfect time to check it. This is a spirit refining pill. Lu Ming was overjoyed when he saw the jade bottles. Those jade bottles were actually spirit refining pills. The spirit refining pill was made from the main ingredients of the spirit refining fruit. If it was frequently consumed by a perfected spirit embryo, it could greatly increase the chances of breaking through to the spirit god realm. If a spirit god powerhouse consumed it, it could condense the spirit god and strengthen their spiritual consciousness. There were dozens of jade bottles here, all of which were filled with spirit refining pills. There were 9 pills in each jade bottle, and there were at least a few hundred spirit refining pills in there. Following that, Lu Ming looked at other things. Many of the others were elixirs, very precious elixirs, and most of them were not inferior to the spirit refining elixir. There were also various precious materials that Lu Ming could not name. He kept them away. Finally, with a thought, a small fiery red pagoda appeared. An emperor's spiritual weapon. As soon as the fiery red tower appeared, it trembled slightly as if it was about to leave. However, Lu Ming's essential core spread out and enveloped the small tower. If I refine an emperor weapon, it will definitely increase my strength. However, it won't be that easy. With my current cultivation, even if I refine it, I won't be able to unleash much of its power. I'll wait until I have some free time to refine it. At the thought of this, Lu Ming kept the small pagoda. Then, he took out the spirit refinement elixir and refined it to condense his spirit soul. Time slowly passed. Tonight, there was no movement. The next day, during the day, there was also no movement. On the second night, Lu Ming made his move. He asked Dandan to inscribe an array that could conceal his aura for him, and his body cut through the void like a ghost, heading towards the 8th Prince Xiezhen's mansion. Lu Ming planned to enter Xiezhen's residence to see if he could find out anything about Xian Yanqing. The 8th Prince's residence was naturally guarded by the Imperial Dragon Guards. However, with Lu Ming's current cultivation and the aura-concealing formation that he had set up, the Imperial Dragon Guards could not detect him at all. The 8th Prince's mansion was huge, with many palaces and pavilions. Lu Ming spread out his spiritual sense to check his surroundings. After a while, his eyes lit up. He moved and appeared above a palace. He scanned the area with his spiritual sense, and the situation below the palace was imprinted in his mind. It was clearer than what he could see with his eyes. This was the wonder of spiritual sense. Below, in a room, 2 figures were discussing something. One of them was Shifeng, and the other was in his 50s. He was burly and looked quite dignified. "Big brother, you have to avenge me. That new deputy is so arrogant that he even dared to hit me. He's obviously not giving you face," Shifeng cried. This burly man in his 50s was the 8th Prince's personal bodyguard, a first-level spiritual god realm expert. However, Lu Ming's current cultivation was at the 2nd level of the spiritual god realm. The spiritual god he cultivated was very powerful, and his spiritual consciousness was powerful. How could the other party discover him? "Alright, I know about this. This Ming Lu is really bold. However, I'm a spiritual god realm expert and the 8th Prince's personal guard. If I attack him directly, I'm afraid I will be criticized by the others. How about this? I have a way to get rid of him." Having said that, Shifeng's elder brother began to use voice transmission. Lu Ming could not hear the rest. "Hee, I'd like to see how you're going to get rid of me," Lu Ming sneered. Then, he left the place in search of the 8th Prince's residence. Not long after, Lu Ming finally found the 8th Prince in the depths of the mansion. The 8th Prince was indeed Xiezhen. After not seeing him for a few years, Xiazhen had matured a little, and his cultivation had also become much stronger. At this moment, Xiazhen was high up in the air, sitting on top of a large hall. Below him, a few people were kneeling there, reporting to him.
Bang.
Xiazhen suddenly slammed the table and shouted coldly, "What? They failed again. What a bunch of trash." 8th Prince. Although the 16th princess is in the Abyss Demon Realm, her talent is too high, and her cultivation progress is too terrifying. All the people we sent were killed by her. One of them answered. Chapter 1095. 1095 News of Xianyanqing. The 16th Princess? Little Qing? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes suddenly revealed a cold, killing intent. From what he had just said, Xianyanqing was in the demon realm. Moreover, Xiazhen had sent people to kill him. At that moment, Lu Ming's killing intent was extremely strong. However, he felt as if a huge rock had been lifted off his chest. At least, Xianyanqing was fine and alive. Humph, I really don't know what my father is thinking. She's an alien, a bitch born of a lowly servant. My father didn't kill her directly or suppress her in the demonic flames of the Abyss Demon Realm, but just imprisoned her in the Abyss Demon Realm and let her fight with the demonic creatures. She's really lucky. Xiazhen's face was dark and his voice was cold. 8th Prince, what should we do next? One of them asked. This bitch hates me to the bone. If I let her live, I'll always feel uneasy. Xiazhen said with a cold face. 8th Prince, in my opinion, you don't need to worry too much. His Majesty the Sage Emperor didn't kill her, most likely because of the father-daughter relationship. However, the 16th princess is a rare species after all, and is a great taboo for our Sage Emperor clan. Even if His Majesty didn't kill her, he wouldn't let her out of the Abyss Demon Realm. She will most likely spend her life in the Abyss Demon Realm. Below, a person said. That may be the case, but this bitch's talent is really too high. As long as she's not dead, I can't rest at ease. Xiazhen said with a dark expression. 8th Prince, should we continue to send more people? Let's wait for a while. The 1,000,000-year national sacrifice will be held in less than 2 months. During this period, my father has not been in secluded cultivation and is paying attention to the big and small matters. It's not a good time to make a move. After the 1,000,000-year national sacrifice, we'll send experts into the demon realm and kill him in one fell swoop. Xiazhen's eyes were sinister. Creak. Lu Ming clenched his fists tightly. He almost could not control the killing intent in his body. Who is it? However, it only leaked out a little bit and was sensed by an expert. Buzz. Lu Ming's figure moved and he left the place. In an instant, he appeared 100 miles away and returned to the dormitory. He really wanted to slap Xiazhen to death, but he knew that it wasn't the time yet. He had to find the entrance to the demon realm and save Xianyanqing. If he killed Xiazhen now, he would definitely alert the enemy. Now, he could only let Xiazhen live for a while longer. However, Lu Ming swore that he would kill Xiazhen sooner or later. From then on, Lu Ming would find time to wander around every day and try to find out more about the Abyss Demon territory. Unfortunately, he found nothing. It seemed that very few people knew about the Abyss Demon territory. Lu Ming guessed that the Tartarian demonic realm was most likely a plane or a secret realm. The entrance was most likely somewhere in the palace. On the other hand, other than going out to inquire, Lu Ming would be refining the spirit refinement pill and comprehending the intent realm. The divine refinement pill could not directly increase Lu Ming's cultivation level. However, it could make the spiritual god more condensed, and the spiritual sense would become stronger. The stronger the spiritual god was, the more beneficial it would be for his future cultivation. 3 days later, Lu Ming was cultivating when Shifeng came again. Lu Ming walked out of the room and looked at Shifeng indifferently. What's wrong? You want to get beaten up again? Humph. Shifeng's face turned ugly. He snorted and said, "I'm here to inform you that there's a mission. The 8th prince is going to the Beast Mountain to hunt. We need to go together. Let's go." "All right." Lu Ming smiled and strode outside. Shi Fang looked at Lu Ming's back and a cold smile appeared at the corners of his lips. The Imperial Dragon Guards gathered and followed Xie Zhen, heading towards Beast Cry Mountain. Beast Cry Mountain was a boundless mountain range. Countless ferocious beasts lived in it. It was a hunting ground for the royal family, and it was specially used for the Xie family's descendants to train their cultivation. The disciples of the Xie family would often come to the Beast Cry Mountain to hunt. In fact, they would enter the Beast Cry Mountain to fight with ferocious beasts. There was a huge military camp outside the Beast Cry Mountain. There were residences and guards. "Shi Fang, you lead the Imperial Dragon Guards and follow me into the mountains, but you don't have to protect me. You guys split up and hunt, and we'll compete to see who can kill more and stronger fierce beasts. How about it?" Looking at the Beast Cry Mountain, Xie Zhen was in high spirits. "8th Prince, how can we be compared to you?" Shi Fang smiled. "It's fine. There are also experts in the Imperial Dragon Guards. Try your best to compete with the Half-Prince, and I will reward those who perform well." Xie Zhen laughed. "All right, I'll bring them along." Shi Fang bowed. "Then let's go." With a wave of his hand, Xie Zhen led the way and flew towards Beast Cry Mountain. Shi Fang and the others also flew towards Beast Cry Mountain. "Could it be that you want to get rid of me in Beast Cry Mountain?" Lu Ming thought in his heart. He guessed that Shi Fang's big brother might attack him at the Beast Cry Mountain. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. If the other party was looking for death, he did not mind giving them a ride. After flying into Beast Cry Mountain, the group dispersed. Lu Ming flew towards the depths of the Beast Cry Mountain, feeling a little bored. The ferocious beasts in the outer area of Beast Cry Mountain were of a very low level. When some king-level and spirit sea-level ferocious beasts saw Lu Ming, they would run away, without a trace, with just a glare from him. After half an hour, no one made a move. Still not moving. Lu Ming muttered. He sat cross-legged on an obvious boulder and waited. After 2 hours, no one made a move on him. It seems like I was wrong. They won't fight here. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He was a little surprised. Forget it. I guess Xie Zhen's hunting is about to end. I'll just kill a few to deal with it. Lu Ming's figure flashed, and he soared into the sky.
Ga, ga.
After a while, screeches were heard, and a group of Silavira eagles flew past. As soon as they saw Lu Ming, more than 10 of them screeched and pounced on him. "It's you guys." Lu Ming flicked his fingers and long spears were formed, shooting at the Silavira condor. Puffed. 5 of the Silavira eagles were pierced by the spear radiance. The remaining eagles screeched in fear and fled. Lu Ming did not pursue them. He used his vital essence to carry the 5 eagles and flew back to the military camp. These 5 eagles were equivalent to the 8th level of the spirit embryo realm, which was more or less enough. In the military camp, Xie Zhen and the others had already returned. On the ground of the military camp, there were ferocious beasts of various shapes and sizes. The 8th prince is really amazing. In just a few hours, you actually killed 3 8th level spirit embryo realm and 3 7th level spirit embryo realm beasts. The 8th prince is indeed a heaven-bestowed genius. This lowly one is impressed. Shi Fang stood in front of Xie Zhen and flattered him. "This is nothing. You guys can cultivate well." Xie Zhen said humbly, but the pride on his face could not be hidden. His cultivation was at the 6th level of the spirit embryo realm, and it was a pretty good achievement to be able to hunt 3 8th and 7th level spirit embryo realm beasts in less than 3 hours in the vast Beast Cry Mountain. All of a sudden, Shi Fang's gaze turned to the horizon, and he saw Lu Ming flying back, dragging 5 Silavira eagles behind him. Chapter 1096. 1096. The reason to take action. He threw the 5 eagles to the ground, causing the ground to shake slightly. This is a Silavira condor. All 5 of them are Silavira condors, so powerful. Moreover, 5 Silavira condors of the 8th level spirit embryo realm. Mingziki is actually so powerful that he could actually hunt 5 Silavira condors of the 8th level spirit embryo realm in less than 3 hours. It's really amazing. Lu Ming's return caused a wave of exclamations. The Imperial Dragon Guards at the scene were in a heated discussion. Although Lu Ming had only killed 5 demonic beasts, they were all at the 8th level of the spirit embryo realm. In terms of value, they had already surpassed Xiezhen. This made Xiezhen's face turn gloomy. Besides Xiezhen, Shifeng's older brother sneered. General Shifeng, who is this?
Xiezhen asked.
8th Prince, this is the new deputy flag. He's called Minglu and has a cultivation of the 7th level spirit embryo realm. Shifeng answered. Oh, so it's the new vice flag bearer? Xiezhen's gaze shifted to Lu Ming. When he saw that Lu Ming had only casually cupped his fists at him without a trace of respect, he felt even more displeased. Xiezhen strode towards Lu Ming and said, Sub-Banner Ming's combat power is amazing. I admire you. Half-princes like people with strong combat power. Sub-Banner Ming, I'm itching to fight. How about you fight with me? A battle? The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled up slightly. That's right. Fight with me. Use all your strength and don't hold back. Don't worry. You can't hurt me. Bang. As Xiezhen spoke, he slowly walked up. His body emitted an intense golden light, and his aura grew. He had awakened a 5th level divine level bloodline, so his combat power was very strong. Ordinary 7th level spirit embryo realm martial artists were no match for him at all, so he was full of confidence. At the side, the others scattered far away. Shifeng and his brother looked at each other and sneered. Make your move.
Boom.
Xiezhen threw a punch at Lu Ming. A golden fist ray howled through the sky and headed straight for Lu Ming. A long spear was condensed in Lu Ming's hands. He came from the Black Spear sect, and he used a long spear.
Buzz.
With a shake of the spear, the tip of the spear trembled, stirring up the wind and clouds as it pierced towards Xiezhen's fist radiance. Bang! Xiezhen's fist radiance was pierced by the spear and collapsed. What? Xiezhen's eyes narrowed, and a hint of killing intent flashed in them.
Boom.
Boom. Following that, the golden light on Xiezhen's body grew even more intense as he continuously punched out. Endless golden light boiled and enveloped Lu Ming. Lu Ming's spear trembled, creating spear flowers that bloomed in the air.
Bang. Bang.
A dense collision sounded, and the fist radiance and spear flower disappeared without a trace. Back in 9 Dragons, Xiezhen's cultivation had been at the peak of the 7th level of the spiritual ocean tier. Now that more than 3 years had passed and Xiezhen was in the ancient Saint dynasty, he definitely had a lot of resources. His cultivation had risen to the 6th level of the spirit embryo realm, and his combat strength was indeed not bad. Ordinary 8th level spirit embryo realm cultivators were no match for him and would be killed by him. However, he was facing Lu Ming, who was trying his best to suppress his power. After dozens of moves, he still could not take down Lu Ming. Killing intent flashed in Xiezhen's eyes. A 100-meter-tall burly man in golden armor appeared above his head. He held a long spear and had 5 golden chakras shining, making him look like a god. Xiezhen turned into a ray of light and entered the body of the golden-armored man.
Kill.
The burly man in golden armor bellowed. The golden spear in his hand emitted a dazzling light as he stabbed toward Lu Ming. The huge spear whistled through the air with terrifying might. What a strong killing intent. He wants to kill me. A cold glint flashed across Lu Ming's eyes. If not for the fact that he was worried about alerting the enemy, he would have killed Xiezhen right away. Boom! Lu Ming took a step forward, and his body soared into the sky. The spear's radiance that was condensed in his hand grew rapidly. It became 100 meters long and 10 meters wide. He swept the spear at the burly man in golden armor.
Boom!
The two spears collided, and the entire camp shook. The burly man in golden armor trembled and was forced to retreat by Lu Ming's spear.
Buzz!
Lu Ming rushed over directly. The huge long spear smashed down fiercely from top to bottom with the force that could split a mountain.
Boom!
The long spear hit the burly man in golden armor heavily, causing his body to shake violently, and he almost fell to the ground. Then, Lu Ming changed the momentum of his spear to a horizontal sweep, which landed heavily on the burly man in golden armor. The burly man in golden armor let out a blood-curdling screech as his body crumbled and transformed back into Xiezhen's appearance. He spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. "How dare you injure the 8th prince? You're courting death."
Bang!
Shi Fang's elder brother, Shizheng, took a step forward and appeared in front of Lu Ming. The aura of the first level of the spiritual god realm burst out from his body. A terrifying pressure filled the air above the military camp. Many people's faces changed drastically. The pressure of the spiritual god realm was too strong. Many people trembled and broke out in cold sweat. However, Lu Ming was as calm as a Buddha's face. He did not feel anything at all. He glanced at Shizheng casually and said, "The 8th prince just told me to use my full strength. I'm just following the 8th prince's order." "You still dare to quibble? The 8th prince is a precious and noble man, and you actually dared to injure him. You have no respect for your superiors, and you deserve to die 1,000 times. I'll cripple you now and lock you in the heavenly prison to reflect on your actions." Shizheng's eyes were cold, and a sneer hung on the corner of his mouth. At the side, Shi Fang was even more smug. He glared at Lu Ming fiercely. Behind Shizheng, Xiezhen's expression was dark and ugly, but he did not stop Shizheng. As Shizheng had said, Lu Ming actually dared to injure him.
He deserved to die.
Haha, this is ridiculous. The 8th prince personally ordered me to use my full strength. I was just following the order and accidentally injured the 8th prince, but you still want to attack me. Who will listen to him in the future? Lu Ming laughed heartily, not feeling the slightest bit of fear. He finally understood that this was all Shizheng's scheme. Shizheng understood Xiezhen very well and knew that Xiezhen was narrow-minded. If Lu Ming were to compete with Xiezhen and win, or even injure Xiezhen, he would definitely die. Even if Lu Ming did not kill more ferocious beasts than Xiezhen, Shizheng would still find a way to let the 8th prince spar with Lu Ming. Today, everything was going more smoothly than Shizheng had expected. The number of ferocious beasts that Lu Ming had killed had actually surpassed Xiezhen's. This made Xiezhen unhappy with Lu Ming, and he wanted to fight Lu Ming directly. There was no better outcome than this. Before the battle began, Xiezhen had already harbored the intention to kill Lu Ming. If Lu Ming's combat strength was not up to par, and he was not a match for Xiezhen, he would most likely be killed on the spot. If Lu Ming's cultivation level and combat strength were higher than Xiezhen's, then Xiezhen's killing intent would definitely be stronger, and Lu Ming would be dead. Therefore, regardless of whether Lu Ming won or lost, he was dead. Audacious. Impudent.
Who do you think you are?
You're insulting the 8th prince. Your entire family should be executed. Shi Fang shouted from the side. As for Xiezhen, the killing intent in his eyes became even stronger. A lowly ant dared to speak to him like that. He should be killed 10,000 times.
Boom.
Shizheng's killing intent burst out. He stepped forward, and the pressure of the spiritual god pressed toward Lu Ming. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.